Can I get a honk honk?
1 2 1 2. Testing.
That wasn't a honk honk.
Honk.
We paint tiny people, then we play with them. We paint tiny people, then we play with them.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Miniatures Monthly at the Crate and Crowbar. My name is Chris Thurston and I'm joined as ever by Tom Senior.
Good day.
Episode 6, Tom.
6. We've done it.
6 months.
Which Chaos God is that?
None of them.
Okay, well next month, that's when the real darkness comes
Is it?
to the podcast.
Who's 7?
7 is Corn?
No, 8 is Corn.
Oh.
9 is Zinch. 7 is Bing.
Sorry.
That's okay.
10 is off.
Siri. Which Chaos God's number is 7? I shouldn't do that. I'll actually happen.
I thought it was Corn. I thought it was a 7-sided star.
No, Corn is definitely 8.
Oh, okay.
Definitely 8. It's because when Khan shows up in a Galaxy in Flames, he bellows like, "I'm on the 8-fold path!" and then gets hit by a Land Raider.
Oh,
That's
man.
why, yeah.
What an epic death.
It's not even a death. What an epic way of getting from A to B.
Speak of fun, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
I'll commune with the Chaos Gods and they'll tell me.
Okay. It might be Slanesh. It might be Slanesh. But who knows? Who can even say? Anyway, 6 is none of those numbers we just mentioned, but it is the number of this podcast. And arguably, hopefully, the least interesting thing about this episode. So, we're recording this episode like a little bit earlier than we normally would relative to when it's coming out. Because I'm traveling later in the month, so I won't be around to record. And that means that there is an even greater danger than ever that stuff we talk about as news will be old news for boring old people by the time you listen to it. But it might still be worth talking about stuff. Also, stuff will probably be announced. As it was during the previous episode, I think, when all of the 40k, which brings us to our first thing, all of the new 40k starter boxes were announced. So we talked a bunch on the last episode about how they've done a good job of sort of breaking down the Age of Sigmar box set, Games Workshop that is, breaking down the Age of Sigmar box set into smaller chunks that, you know, you can pick up at more like a board game price point than a giant box of miniatures price point. And that has happened for 40k as well now.
Good times.
It is, yeah. And it's interesting, given those models are snap fit and in coloured plastic and things, it seems like there's a reasonably good prospect as a sort of cheap and accessible board war game.
Yeah, it's good to offer those different price points for people. And I think like about Games Workshop about 5 years ago, the barrier to entry was like you're gonna have to drop £250 on, like for paints and for army and stuff to actually get into it. It felt like, you know, on books you needed and that kind of thing. The idea of kind of including the rules and the actual war scrolls and data sheets in with the models and that kind of thing. So they've also started doing. It just means you can buy a box and then play with it straight away, no matter what you buy. And these starters are just kind of an extension of that logic. It's where if you've got £20 and you're looking to road test this hobby, you can go and buy a thing that will let you do it.
Yeah, and if you like, and to be honest, it feels sort of realistically scaled against the extent of the participation a lot of people will actually do in terms of actually playing the game, actually getting the models finished, that kind of thing. Like, yeah, like 3 models on one side, 6 on the other, which I think is the smallest set, is about right for like, you know, I got back into this with Silver Tower, you got back into it with the Age of Sigmar core sets, which are both extremely daunting from a kind of like, I'm back into this and now I own 50 models.
Yeah. Hard models as well, like, you know, the Corn Lord and the Corn Reavers, I think they're called, or whatever, the
Blood Reavers.
Blood Reavers.
Never just Reavers.
No. They're very fiddly actually, and quite cool models. I'm not a big fan of the Corn aesthetic generally, but they're a hard painting job. Lots of tiny like edging on the armor and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, and they're people as well.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
You know, they're human beings, so that brings with it a lot of complexity when it comes to getting things to look right, quote unquote. Whereas zombies and big hulky space marines with gribbly armor is
no worries.
Well, you can do amazing things with them, but they're a lot easier, I think, as a sort of like a baseline entry point.
It's good. What are the different price points for them?
I think it's 25, 50, and 100.
Okay, and 100 gets you the full.
100 is the Dark Imperium box, the one you and I both have now. Like the mega box. And that is a lovely
It's amazing.
box. It feels like a real sort of treat. And also like, it's worth noting that you get like the rule book you get in the other versions of the game isn't the full hardback tome with all of the lovely lore.
That book is beautiful and it did an incredible job with the 40k rule book.
Yeah.
Beautiful hardback, full of art. First sort of half of it is lore stuff about the state of the Imperium, and then, the rest of it's just absolutely packed full of scenarios and obviously the rules as well.
Yeah, I was surprised by how much there is in it, actually, now that I've gotten all the way to the end. Like, there's a lot of stuff at the end in terms of, like, optional rule sets for things like dog fighting or fighting in the context of a planetary bombardment or setting up these sort of mega games that I wouldn't have been surprised to see as 20 quid supplements.
Yep.
But some of them literally were. Like, I think Cities of Death literally was a 20 quid supplement.
No, it's in
and that's in the core rulebook, which is, well, it's in the core rulebook you get if you either buy that in separately or buy the big box. But honestly, the more they can do to scale this stuff, the better, I think. Like, I don't think if you're dipping your toes in the water, as a lot of people listening to this presumably are, it's necessarily the right option.
No.
Unless you're going to love it. But it is nice that you can get some of it. And then all of those, points as well, all of those starter boxes also act as quite good expansions to that big game and vice versa. So I think if you end up, I can imagine a scenario where if we were getting back into the game this year and we decided to get the 50 quid box and split it, then maybe if that's something that you enjoy, it's worth then getting the big box and splitting that, and they all fit together nicely.
You get a big army very quickly as well.
You do, yeah.
Actually, if you're doing it that way, they're a great way to supplement. If you just want more Death Guard and more Space Marines, then buying the kind of mid-tier one will just get you more units. You don't necessarily need the heroes and everything.
No.
Each time. Works really well.
It does also, so the other thing that's happened since those were announced, and speaking of kind of expanding from that initial point, is we now know the shape of basically the next couple of weeks when it comes to the Space Marine releases. Space Marines are surprising nobody, the first faction to get like a codex and a proper new range in 8th edition.
Just the Primaris.
Yeah, and it turns out that a lot of the Primaris Marines that are in the book that we mentioned last episode, I think, are in the game. Who would have thought?
So what's new? We've got the Aggressors.
Yeah.
They're probably the standout new kit, I would say. Are they going to replace Terminators? Are they the new Terminators?
I think they're Devastators. I think they're better, more equivalent to Royal Devastators. Because I don't think we've seen a Primaris Terminator yet, really.
No.
Because there's the Gravis armor that the Captain wears and that these guys also wear, and the Inceptors wear a version of it, I think. It's the bigger armor.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have, like, if you think of the two things that define Terminators, I would argue it's their invulnerable saves and the fact that they can teleport into battle if they want to. They can deep strike. And these Gravis units can't do either of those things.
Right.
The Captain has an invulnerable save, but it comes from an extra piece of equipment he has.
Halo, isn't it?
It's his Iron Halo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see them more like Devastator equivalents. A bit like how the Reavers, who are the other new unit, the sort of skull-faced grapple men, knifey grapple, stabby friends, are kind of like scouts, but like super heavy metal scouts.
Yeah, and a lot of people have been split on the Reavers, particularly the way they look. I think like they're a lot better when they're painted in black. After seeing like the Raven Guard, yeah. Raven Guard color scheme, suddenly they make a lot more sense. Bright blue with like their skull masks. I think they do look slightly silly.
I think they'd look good in like dark green, like Dark Angels. Reavers would probably look pretty good.
Yeah.
And to be honest, dark red or red, like there's a lot of colors. Like blue is not a color that necessarily meshes well with like and here's my terrifying skull mask. Yeah. Like I think just in terms of its tone and like the way it looks on the table. Yeah,
I'm not sure if how good they are in the game because they've got their shot grenades that stop people from overwatching, which is very useful. Apart from that, I don't think they're usually that good. But we'll see.
I'm interested to see what their grapple gun does.
Oh yeah.
That showed up on the kit, like the multi-pose kit.
Yeah.
I think them and the, Aggressors are the first, like, proper, not just snap fit mono pose, as in you can only make the model one way kits that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for a proper multi-pose kit for the Intercessors, which is interesting.
Yeah, they're a bit one note out of the box. They're the equivalent of the Tactical Marines for normal Space Marines. But the strength of Tactical Marines is they get loads of different loadout options and loads of different gear, and they could perform lots of roles on the battlefield where it feels like the Intercessors, is that what they're called?
Intercessors, yeah.
Intercessors.
They like intercede and then S's.
Right. They just stand next to a captain and get rerolls on their bolt guns. That's
Yeah.
pretty much it.
I love the poses, actually. I do think
They look rad, yeah.
I think their understated poses are really nice.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
there's a tendency of, a lot of Games Workshop miniatures just all look great, but they look great because the poses are so dynamic that that everyone is in a kind of a mad leap or a sort of like, and look at my enormous gun kind of sprawl, whereas the intercessors kind of like look, I think it was you that said this actually, like look like they're walking like forward in a sort of tactical way, appropriately enough. Like they look like they're precise and slow and imposing rather than running and jumping and screaming and shouting and waving.
Yeah, they have self-control. I think it depends massively on the range. When you see the new Primaris range together in a photograph, they look fantastic together. I think they're designed to have a kind of shape overall as an army and to fit together. So Primaris only, like chapter army is going to look pretty good on the shelf.
Which is what I have my eye on.
Yeah, you got plans?
Yeah, I don't know what yet. So, I mean, I said, I think last episode that I was going to wait on the Primaris half of the box until the Space Marine Codex has come out.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, it's the first thing.
Yeah.
It's out and it's on pre-orders this weekend, I think, and so it'll be out just after this podcast comes out, I think.
Oh, cool.
But that's going to include, like, they're doing the right things. They're borrowing the right things from Age of Sigmar in that they're taking chapter keywords and spinning special abilities out of them. And we're starting to see the command point system, which is a sort of amount of points you get last you a game based on it encourages you to build an army in a sort of, it doesn't force you to build an army in a rigid way, but if you do adhere to certain guidelines in terms of ratios of HQ to troops and that kind of thing, then you get extra command points. And so far, all of 8th edition has been played, apart from the game we played where we forgot this system exists. It's all been played with, like, just the very basic uses for those things, which are things like to interrupt in the order of attacks in a combat phase or to reroll a dice and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's going to be shitloads of them. And interestingly, some of the uses of command points happen before a battle and essentially allow you to, like, upgrade a unit. So you might take a battalion that gives you 3 extra command points, but then invest those 3 command points immediately in upgrading one of your heroes or something like that, which is a way I think that they're getting other unit types into the game without adding more units technically.
Yeah, and without having too many, what are they called? Their formations in...
Yeah. Or battalions in... War Scroll battalions in AOS.
Which is how you do like a multi-force army in 40k now, is that you can have like an Imperial Guard battalion with a Space Marine battalion. They're not called battalions. I can't remember what they're called.
Called detachments.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, there's a lot of similar systems that use the different words, but they're the same. Like Rend and AP.
Yeah.
Or leadership and battle shock.
Leadership, battle shock, morale phase.
Morale phase, leadership value,
Right.
battle shock.
This is what we get into.
Basically the same thing.
We did play both systems recently, so we're having difficulties.
I did notice that when we were playing 40k earlier, we both gave up on not saying Rend.
Yeah, it's just Rend, isn't it?
Good, Rend is a better word than AP.
Yeah, I like Rend.
Yeah, I've got 2 points of Associated Press. Like,
Yeah.
maybe being like working in media means that AP just means Associated Press for me, like AP style guide. Like,
Yeah, it's true. Whereas Rend gives you a vivid picture of what's happening there.
Indeed.
So that's
Yeah.
So there's also the new tank, which I don't think has been announced, but
It's been announced, but yeah, there's been more pictures of it.
Yeah, that seems like there are different ways you could build it. It seems like it's going to be a transport for Primaris. There's also the Dreadnought, which has interesting ways to build as well. There are 2 Dreadnoughts on the stream last week. Warhammer live stream in a really good game, where they also played with the Ultramarines chapter ability, which is insanely good.
Surprising everybody.
Yeah, they can fall back and shoot, which is something that only flying units can do normally. As I did earlier with my fetid bloat drone.
That's correct. Yes, a fetid bloat drone.
Bloat drone.
It's funny. Like, I feel like there's a risk that armies sort of spike in power or versatility as their codexes arrive.
Yeah.
I think. To an extent, I think, whenever you get one of these abilities, you're technically giving up some versatility. Like, suddenly you have to be a mono force in some way to kind of take advantage of a particular keyword ability, as in AOS. And sometimes I think AOS sets precedent for sometimes the best armies in the game being kind of mad multi-faction combos, regardless of the specific bonuses for adhering to a keyword. Sometimes. But most of the time, those things come out in codexes and say, we'll give you an extra ability if you combine these units in this way. Ultimately outweigh other
think it takes a while for people to discover the counters to them. And then it's almost like the thing isn't overpowered. It's just that people haven't figured out what they have to take in their army to stop certain things from happening.
Funnily enough, when it comes to like picking, have you settled on a chapter yet, incidentally?
No. I mean, I desperately want to paint some, but no idea what colour I'm going to do. So like, I'm going to wait for the codex. Yeah. Cause I want it to probably going to be an Imperial Fist successor chapter, given that the story of my army is that they're trapped in this, they're trapped on a Forge world, and they only kind of get fleeting gaps in the warp storm that happens in their sector. So they can't get people in or out very easily. So they've got like a ragtag collection of mainly Mechanicum, because they live on the Forge world, but also some assassins, because the Imperium thought that the planet had turned traitor at some point and sent assassins to dismantle the leadership of the Forge world and take control of it. And then they realised that they're still faithful and actually joined them. And Primaris, similar, once that message gets out that they're actually not traitors, Primaris is sent to reinforce. So there's going to be like bits and pieces of different armies, but hopefully unified in a colour scheme. And I've no idea what that is going to be at all. So I need an Imperial Fist chapter successor would make sense, because they're going to be fortressing up, bunkering up in this endless difficult situation. So see what colour schemes there are.
I'm interested in seeing what colour schemes with, like, cause I'm thinking of, as I said, I think last month, regular old yellow Imperial Fist, but
they do look good.
I want to see if any of the story hooks for any of the new chapters they're going to announce grab me, because there are a lot of every kind of Space Marine army out there, and it'd be quite nice, given that this is a fresh start and given that I'm going to just do Primaris because I don't want to get too heavy into it. I just would like a little Space Marine force. Yeah. It would be quite nice to be like among probably some of the first people to have a force of a chapter that's only just been invented. You know what I mean? So in a couple of years down the line, when you look back on it, you've got that kind of like, it's almost like a little curio in your collection. Like, this is a full army of Rift Stalkers. Most people haven't seen them before, that kind of thing. So we'll see. Like, it'll be a mixture of paint scheme I like. I'll look at the rules somewhat. Like, I don't really care. Like, the rules for a specific chapter or a specific, neatly enough, you get the chapter rules for your successor chapter. If you are a successor chapter, you get the kind of the root one. But like, the rules might inform the decision a small amount, but probably not loads compared to backstory and are the colours nice?
Very important.
Yeah. So the Space Marine range is kind of exciting. There's, and this has nonetheless been another month of relatively quiet times in Age of Sigmar.
Yeah. Oh, there's a chaplain in the...
Oh, God, yeah.
So there's a new captain model, there's a librarian, and the chaplain was pictured in a...
And as was the apothecary.
Oh, fantastic, yeah. So that's all of them now, surely.
Yeah.
The whole
Unless they get a Tech Marine. That's the only thing they're missing. But, they don't need everything. Like, those are the ones that make sense,
I think they'll get everything, eventually.
Yeah. Yes, because, eventually they will quietly replace.
Yep. Marine by Marine.
Godspeed, Mini Marines.
But yeah, relatively quiet for AOS, as you'd expect. And the Shadow of 40k is released. Though they announced that the Path to Glory book is coming. So that's the new, we mentioned it last time, I think. It's the new, expanding upon the General's Handbook's, kind of narrative campaign structure where you can play a series of games and grow your force from like a general and some dudes to a fully fledged army over the course of a series of narrative battles.
Yeah, it's bigger than Skirmish, where you have like a leader and some individual models, like up to maybe 8 models. But it's smaller than a battle game, or at least initially it is.
So that's cool. And also the General's Handbook is surely imminent, and that's what's actually going to reset Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, that's interesting. So one of the reasons Path to Glory is its own book now is it's not in the next handbook, because it's, the things they've sort of revealed about the next General's Handbook is it's almost moving the game in a different direction. Like, not just that the handbook every year replaces the previous one, which is kind of what I expected. It's more that certain elements get replaced and certain elements just get fleshed out. So like Siege Warfare is in the next edition of the General's Handbook, stuff like that, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that's right.
The big thing at the moment is points values, because like I'm preparing for a tournament in beginning of September that have said that they will, if the General's Handbook 2 comes out by then, they will use the new points values. And that means I kind of need to be ready for like the value of everything in my army to change.
And I think a lot of, fittingly, a lot of things are going to change for Siege as well, in both directions.
Changes.
Yeah, you expect Skyfires to go up, but most of your other things might come down. I
Yeah,
imagine.
because I've built an army that doesn't make any sense. Most of the things I've used probably going to get cheaper.
Yes.
To reflect their performance.
Yeah, indeed. So that's really, really exciting. Plus they're adding allegiance abilities to a lot of the factions that didn't have them because they came out before the sort of battle tome refresh that Games Workshop did last year when they started adding in these really cool allegiance abilities. So if you've got a faction that's all from the same army, so entirely Stormcast forced, you get access to certain abilities that other armies don't.
Yeah. And so, yeah, because Stormcast, Khorne, and Tzeentch all now have fleshed out ones, and Kharadron Overlords, because those are the factions that have had a new style battle tome since the beginning of this year.
Yes.
But, yeah, there's lots of factions like Sylvaneth, all of the Death factions.
Yeah, the Death factions. I mean, I hope that GHB 2 brings back Death a bit, because I think they're not a terrible place at all. They're really fun to play with, and the Flesh Eater Courts is great. Really great idea for an army and really awesome rules. I've played against them a lot. But it feels like they need a little bit of a lift, and I want to see some skeletons again. You know, I love skeletons.
It's really nice to do it this way, like rather than bind all of an army's, things to get excited about and updates and stuff into one book that comes out every 5 years. It's nice that every now and then there's something that affects all the armies and, you know what I mean, or gives a little bit
Just
to
shakes
everybody.
things up a bit. Yeah. Really, really healthy.
Yeah, I think it is really healthy. And it's exactly like how a video game would do it. Like little buffs to different things, little tweaks and changes and moving things around. And it's
makes
smart.
the game feel new again.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing that's been interesting, I think there's an interesting question this month, or I've seen it come up a few times about affordability and GW stuff. And we've spoken about this a little bit before. Everything we've discussed, like, this is an expensive hobby. I'm increasingly aware that it's not, for me, like, more expensive really than the video games that I was getting into in terms of like the price of a new game relative to the value I'm getting out of a miniature. I think we both found that.
For sure.
But it was interesting. So there's a few new start collecting boxes, which if you're not aware are the sort of 50 quid bundle deals for both Age of Sigmar and 40k. They're designed as like the seeds of a new army, but they are pretty much they're a good bolt on to anything really.
They're really extremely good value.
Yeah, well, the nuts one, like, it kind of struck me that, like, so one of the new ones they announced is start collecting Fire Slayers, which are the naked, on fire dwarf men.
Yeah.
And their start collecting box, contains a Magma Droth, which is like a big salamander dragon thing
huge
with
model.
a dwarf riding it.
Yeah.
Like 10 Berserkers, which is a, unit of troops, and 2 hero models. For £50, which is a lot of money, but it's fucking nuts because the Magmadroth by itself is 50 quid.
Yeah.
Like they just knocked the Magmadroth price down from 65 to 50.
And also you get all this
And
extra
also releases it out of the box.
Yeah.
So essentially there's no reason to ever buy a Magmadroth now.
No.
You might as well get the big box of free dwarves.
just for the spare bits.
Well, I say free in the biggest version.
Right,
but
yeah. That's what it feels like though is, I mean, some people might argue that the Magmadroth was too expensive to start with, but that's a big kit. That's if you're going to buy a toy of that size for a child, I mean, it would be the same price, like,
Yeah.
kids,
particularly of stuff of this quality.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the finesse of it and everything else. I mean, people have been complaining about the pricing of the Primaris Heroes this month more than anything else. And those are individual models that cost £22.5
£2.5
each.
pounds, I think. I think it's 22.50. I think it might be 25.
Yeah.
Might be 20. I don't know.
I think 22.50 rings a bell. Of course, like, it's all relative and people are saying, well, they're just like a single pose model. You can't really do anything with them. Don't come with many spare bits that you just get your model and it's £20 and people think that's a lot. And it is a lot, but I think they know that people will pay it because hero models matter so much in your army. They just are worth more just because they're the focal point. They're the guys who do a lot of the stuff in battles and they are just worth more.
So I paid 20 quid for a hero model this month because on a whim I bought the Changeling, which is one of the things I painted this month. And that is a absolutely brilliant looking model. Like I love that, how that model works.
It's absolutely stunning.
And is it worth 20 quid? Like, I don't know. In terms of like in terms of how much I like it, probably. In terms of its physical size and the amount of plastic involved, dunno.
Yeah.
In terms of its contribution to my bits box, no. Which is something I've become more aware of, actually, that particularly, like, I think that's the reason that it doesn't necessarily apply to those characters, but something about the cost of a kit. One of the reasons those new those new starter boxes and the cheaper sort of Primaris kits they've put out, the monopose ones. One of the reasons they're cheap is you make the models that are in that box, and it will not contribute anything to your pile of bits, really, like unless you start hacking them to pieces. Whereas kits, like the vehicle kits or like some of the bigger demon kits and things like that, often kind of shower you in parts. And I think that's something that, I don't know if it gets forgotten, but it's definitely something that like I became more aware of this month, is that like the value of that stuff isn't just the unit you build out of the specific combination of parts that you use. It's all of the parts that you're getting, which aren't always enough to make an additional model or something like that. But often they're the kinds of things that you're glad you have one project down from this one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for example is if I ever do the big pile of Tzeentch Chaos Cultists for 40k, I will have to spend absolutely no time sourcing parts to Tzeentchify them because I've just got boxes full of little feathers and charms and weird things with eyes on them and stuff as a result of buying in other things. It feels like there are benefits, like sort of knock-on benefits to having those big kits that are very modular, but you don't feel those benefits until you're kind of done with that kit and moved on to something else later.
I think if you're deep into the hobby enough to care about bits boxes, then you're happily paying £20 for a hero model already.
Well, maybe grumbly paying.
Yeah. I spent 20 odd quid on the Tech Priest Dominus. That's, in fairness, a really big model. Quite a big model, bigger than it kind of seems. But I don't regret that. Looking forward to building it. It's going to be the general of my army. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, I've spent far stupider 20 quid in my life.
Yeah, definitely. Me too.
So nonetheless, there's that side of things.
Yeah, it's a bit futile, the old price debate, even though we've just had it for 10 minutes. Like, because value is different for everyone. It depends on your priorities.
I'm conscious of it because I don't want to completely lose sight of the value of the things that I'm spending my money on necessarily. Yeah. But also it's the thing that I notice come up a lot with people who are new to the hobby.
That's true.
Right? Like everyone goes through a process of figuring out how much they're willing to spend, how much they can, how much they want to invest and what's that worth to them. You know what I mean? It feels like everyone's got to sort of square or get their eye in when it comes to like, this is the extent of my desired investment in this thing, which is an interesting, you know what I mean? I think you can't really ignore it.
That is relevant to, especially to new people. Yeah.
Yeah. So to round up news for this month and also to play the faintest, tiniest bit of lip service to the notion that this isn't entirely a Warhammer podcast. It sort of isn't. So there's a new wave of X-Wing ships out this week as of the time that we're recording. No, last week of the time we're recording. I'm wrong. Which is the 11th wave of ships that the game has had. It's 3 new ships. The Scourge Bomber, which was from the Jedi Starfighter video game on the GameCube, I think.
Wow, going all the way back.
That's a deep cut.
Yeah.
It's appeared in a few other things since, which is for Scum, but with one pilot can also be a rebel. There's a TIE Aggressor, which is a TIE Fighter variant that's a little bit like a Y-Wing that was only in Star Wars Galaxies.
Wow.
That's another deep cut. That's for the Empire, obviously, and it's the first Imperial ship that can mount a turret upgrade.
Really?
Of any kind.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cause TIE Fighters shoot forwards is one of the founding tenets of that game. Not anymore. Now they can shoot backwards a little bit. And then the other ship is the Auzatuk gunship. This is an even deeper cut, which is a Wookiee shuttle which was in, I think, the Clone Wars cartoon and makes an appearance in Star Wars Rebels and has been a few other things.
Is it just a giant hairball?
No, it's sort of it's a nice looking model. It's a very divisive model because it looks a little bit like a kind of a gunship, like a Hind helicopter, but in space. But it's made of wood.
What?
And it's got like an ornate wooden carvings on it.
Oh my goodness.
It's whether or not it feels Star Warsy to you depends on which specific era of Star Wars you grew up with, I suspect.
Okay.
The reason, I don't really have any sort of deep cuts on these, and I appreciate that a lot of people play X-Wing, but obviously, people invest to different levels. It's interesting. So this is the first time I haven't had like the entire wave on pre-order, or even like both, 2 of everything on pre-order. So kind of like stock up. I will pick up stuff. I don't have any of it yet, but one of the reasons for that is that I've been playing the game a lot less, partly due to life reasons, but also, in my opinion, X-Wing at the moment feels like it's in a place where it kind of badly needs an FAQ. Like it badly needs a wave of updates. It needs the kind of thing that the General's Handbook promises to bring, which is that sort of like game-wide shake-up that makes people excited again. And the metagame feels very stale. And at present, most of those ships don't do a lot to change that because they play into existing trends in the way the game is played, which is basically the big themes of this wave are sort of bigger alpha strike damage, which is already a thing for the game, and even more bombs in more combinations. And as X-Wing, because X-Wing is like Warhammer, a big variance game, a lot about trying to control variance. Unlike Warhammer, it's not a game where you have a million dudes. So swings can be disastrous or amazing for the few ships that you do have. As a consequence, anything in the game that does a reliable amount of damage, or can sort of circumvent someone else's defensive process or something like that, is extremely powerful. And the game has kind of shifted in that way. And as it's shifted in that way, the core mechanic of the game, which is setting maneuvers and trying to, doing the kind of the amazing feeling analog flying of ships that is unique to X-Wing and Star Trek Attack Wing, but we don't talk about that, has diminished relative to the importance of upgrades, is the way I would sort of define it. And it feels like the game sort of needs a little bit of a kick to kind of, break down the barrier between the absolute best lists in the game and everything else. Because that strata is starting to form. Which, we had a discussion about AOS, I think a couple of episodes ago, about how if you wanted to go win a tournament, there are ways you can do that. Like there were absolutely lists in Age of Sigmar that felt like they were your easiest ways to go and crack open the meta.
Though Heat 3 happened.
Yeah, you're right.
After that, and it was a really, really good mix of armies there. And a Moonclan Grot's army won with squigs. It was extraordinary. It's amazing scenes. But there was each army's there, but people have figured out as each a bit, so they weren't as as dominant as they were previously. So I feel like actually AOS is in a really good place.
Yeah, I think now that I say that, I think you're right. I think so. I find metagames and how they operate like eternally fascinating. And I'm very conscious of my own biases when it comes to X-Wing and things I value and don't. I do think the game has been in a slump for more than a year now, because of one expansion that was bad.
Right.
And it's hard to get around that. It's sapped the enthusiasm of everybody I know.
Okay.
Everybody I know. Like
is that the jump ships?
The jump master. Yeah. Everyone started to go away from compared to where the scene was. And obviously people drift away and new things come along, but it has felt very different for a long time. It felt like it was sort of an albatross. And I'm still interested in playing X-Wing, and I'm going to do store championships at the end of the month, and I'm excited about that. But it does feel like it's starting to, as it was for such a long time, such a refreshing change to the sort of complex orthodoxies of old Warhammer. It feels like, not that the games have entirely swapped places, because 8th edition 40k is still quite a substantially, there's still probably quite a lot more to remember than there is in X-Wing. Really, and I think probably it's less likely to I think 40k 8th is less likely to immediately grab someone than a basic game of X-Wing, which is partly the IP and partly just the immediacy of I set a dial and I flew a ship, not I moved 6 inches, that kind of thing. Yeah. The sort of the physicality of it. I do think as 40k has sort of radically reinvented itself and vastly simplified itself without losing too much of what made it feel good. X-Wing has grown and expanded and redefined itself to the point where it is now suffering from bloat. You know what I mean? It is now at an interesting point where it will take something to make that game about X-Wings fighting TIE fighters again. As opposed to about ships from Jedi Starfighter fighting wooden Wookiees.
How have we got?
Not that those things are bad from a pure game point of view. It's just there's something about the aesthetic and the feel and the kind of the things you're thinking about when you're playing that have slowly started to drift. And that's an interesting phenomena. I think it's absolutely fixable. And I suspect there's a fix in the works. I suspect the reason we haven't seen it is because the game is midway through its competitive season. And so it might be that the FAQ is going to be timed relative to that. Yeah. But, hey, it's a interesting time for that game.
It's a shame to hear because when I started playing, I never played it seriously at all. But I enjoy the game. I love the rule set. It's amazing. But when we first started playing, you could run TIE Swarm and you'd fight some X-Wings. And it was the most exciting thing ever because that's what happens in all the films.
You can still absolutely do that.
Right.
And, TIE Swarms are still mostly viable. They're very high skill ceiling and stuff, and that's a separate question. Cool, it's a separate question basically, because if you're playing 9 games in a day on a long Swiss and you've brought something that's hard, you will probably ultimately lose out on average to the person who's brought something that's easy.
Yeah.
Like that's just the way.
You're gonna make more mistakes, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
And the rewards for the higher skill ceiling stuff don't quite match up because the floor has risen, essentially. Right. That's from a meta point of view. But anyway, that's sort of the X-Wing update. I imagine I'll have a little bit more to say about it when I've done some more events. Like, well, the other reason I've been quiet on it is not a lack of enthusiasm for the game. It's just that I took a break after the European Championship.
Sure.
So, as you do.
Cool.
But yeah, so we should talk about our month in painting and playing with dudes. Cause it doesn't feel like it's been a short month because of when we're recording this. It's not been a big month for either our hobby in terms of like narrative or like understanding of those settings, but it feels like we both dug in a little bit deeper into that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm trying to remember what we've picked up since last time. I got a Dark Imperium box, so that's happy.
Yeah, you finally got yours.
I got mine built on my Death Guard. I've started playing with them until I decide what colour my Primaris Space Marine is going to be. Probably the most successful project was the Vanguard Hunters, which I've finished 5 of and got them up to like a standard really happy with. But I think I've talked about that last time.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the process, but you finished them now.
I finished them. Pictures, yeah. And what else have I done? Painted some Nurgles, painted some Plague Marines, in a purple colour scheme. That was quite a gamble, but I think will pay off when they're all the same colour and they're all together. It's quite hard to make those models look bad with a zany colour scheme, but I'm giving it a shot.
It's interesting because we're actually using the same colour set for our Nurgle. Like we've both gone for sort of like a sandy cream, purple and green.
Yeah.
But in completely different combinations with completely different results.
Yeah, the basic armour is, that I've done is like a dark purple, but quite a rich purple. Cadbury purple, I called it on the Twitter. And the spot colour is this, lurid glowing green colour. So all the eyes will glow green. I'm trying, like, doing some very basic attempts at, source lighting, painting, which I'm hoping to practice. And the Nurgle, range is a good place to practice that because they've got like little lights and stuff all over them. The tentacles are like Rakoth flesh washed with, like a mix of Seraphim Sepia and Bealtan Green, which are just 2 washes that you can mix together to get a kind of gross, putrid thing. And the more you wash Rakoth with that stuff, the more kind of green and horrible and like rotten it looks.
Yeah.
And all the trim is bronze. And there's so much trim on those things. It's an absolute nightmare.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, so I'm finally
Welcome to chaos.
Chaos is all about that.
Everything's got a little bit of trim.
Yeah. So that's been most of my month, just painstakingly doing trim. But it'll be worth it in the end. I'm going to paint up my Nurgle Lord next, the Lord of Contagion, which is an amazing model. This whole King beast
great.
With a huge axe, that plays in the game exactly how he looks as well.
Slow and deadly.
Yep.
Silent but deadly.
Indeed.
The Nurgle champion.
And we'll talk about the games we played later, but obviously we've played some 40k and we played some AOS. We've done more games this episode than we've
Definitely
done.
Both of us have, I think.
Yeah,
which
is great.
Well, because you and I played 3, which is
I've really enjoyed. I learned so much about the game. It's such a strange game. We'll get into this.
But
it's such a strange game. But
I guess that's going to be a big part of it. Cause, like, I definitely feel like this has been a big month of, well, just the last couple of days have been a big, like, okay, this is AOS. Like, I'm starting to get this now.
Yeah, you start to understand how it all really works. How about you, Chris? What's your hobby been?
So I've done that. I really wanted to be productive. That was the thing. So like when we last spoke, I'd just finished all 1,000 Suns. I think that weirdly maybe the measure of whether or not you're going to stick with this hobby is after finishing one long and time-scrolling project, do you then go like, thank God, another one? Like just the difference is enough, or do you take a break from painting entirely? So I jumped into AOS Zinch, which I've left fallow for a long time. That's one of the reasons that our AOS playing, we started doing other things because, like I hadn't added anything new to my army or anything like that. So I dug into the kits that were there. And so the first thing I painted this month was the Burning Chariot kit, which is a journey. That thing, like, so I feel like there's, I've made the point about, sub-assemblies before. And, and last month I was saying how I'd given myself the treat with my Nurgle or even just teaching myself that it's okay not to do sub-assemblies sometimes. Not everything needs them.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that thing needs them. Because, you've got a disc, sitting on top of a gout of flame that's made of 3 separate parts, which is being pulled by 2 screamers, which are essentially just screamer models that are sort of welded into this flame model. But it's still like painting 2 full screamers, like that's a unit basically. And then there's the disc, and then there's the Exalted Flamer, who's a massive flamer, and then there's 3 green horrors. So what I thought was, I'd not painted like a big kit before. This is really the first like vehicle profile thing that I've done. And I realized, oh, this is painting a unit. This is not painting a big model. Well, I think some vehicles would be if there was only one thing and they weren't, both horizontally complicated and vertically complicated. So I basically just had to build that model from the ground up. It's something I've started doing this month more and more that I found very helpful is I basically fully base the models now and then paint them. Like, because partly with the chariot, it was necessary because I wanted to spray things different colors to kind of make things easier. So, and because the chariot, you'll see pictures, the shape of it, there's so many flying things like above, like if something is hovering, that's the worst. Like if it's sat on the base, you don't need to paint the thing it's sat on. If it's tall and thin and standing on one leg, it's fine because you're always going to have access to everything around it. If something is hovering broadly and flatly, like a pair of manta rays pulling a flaming disc might, across the base, then the human eye, you can see all of the base. You just can't fucking paint it once you've assembled it. Like, so I basically fully built it, painted it, did the rocks, the tufts, everything. Then I did the flames and the screamers. Then I built the disc and painted that. And then I built the Exalted Flamer and painted that. And then I built the blue horrors and then it was done. It took about a week.
It is huge though, and it is amazing.
Yeah, I magnetized it as well, which is something that, partly for transport so that the disc, but also so that the top level turns, because then the flamer, who's also gouting a huge amount of flame, can sort of turn to, set stuff on fire.
Yeah, it's a freakish kit, which is brilliant, I think. I think you've done an amazing job with the flamer, especially making it look like a monster, where they kind of can look like wibbly bin bags.
I've thought of them as demon bin bags for a long time. Yeah, I think there's a few things that I've, it definitely feels like it's benefited from me going away and getting better at painting before returning to Tzeentch stuff.
Right.
I might do some touch-ups on my other flamers. But there are also things that I did that also used stuff that I learned from the Harlequins and other stuff. Like everything I've done has helped. Like, in terms of like hot painting tips, round 1 for this month, I found myself, I now more freely, I've gotten a better sense of how to achieve an effect, and that's just practice. But I've become, I now use often opposite techniques to do the same thing depending on context. So blends are an example, right? Like you're talking about, having a smooth transition or a gradient or something like that. And I have loads of gradients on my stuff because I like painting them and they're very Tzeentchy. Like colors fading into each other is a really good visual shorthand for like warping and changing and all the things those models are ostensibly doing, but you can't see because they're static.
Yeah.
And so, and I paint a lot of green fire, and I was invested in finding a way to make it look less like cabbage. I've not entirely succeeded, but, interestingly or not, that fire, like everything else, is a product of not just washing. So washing, making glazes with lamy and medium, and dry brushing. And specifically, I think the thing I've learned or started to use more confidently this month has been using dry brushing to quickly achieve an effect that you then sort of enhance with washes and glazes. So dry brushing is actually an amazing way to achieve a transition between 2 colors on a flat surface because, short of an airbrush, it's a similar effect. You apply a small and controlled amount of paint. And if you don't do it right, it can look streaky. You have to be very careful. If you apply too much, you just created a blob. But like, for example, the flamer has a transition from deep blue to purple to black. Which is, I think, where that monstrous kind of thing comes from. Like, its face and arms go black rather than just into a kind of bright color like the others do. Which is, I wanted to make it look like it was a more important flamer, because it's an exalted flamer. And that is kind of how I ended up doing it. And that is done, it's almost entirely with dry brushing, but then the highlights that are on it that also go through the same transition are done with glazes over highlights. So, like, mixing those things seems to create, like, relatively quickly quite a good balance of effect.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Glazing over with an intermediary color is actually a really good way of achieving a sort of quick blend type look. So it's actually, and that's where lamy and medium is great, because you can mix your color, lamy it down, and get that mid-tone every time.
Yeah, I've started using dry brushing to do the lighter parts of fire. Fire is fucking weird. Like, actually, fire is a perfect example of inverting effects because fire is brighter at its core and darker outside, which is the opposite of how you would light almost anything else. It's the opposite of an object, obviously, which gets darker in its recesses and lighter outside.
Yeah.
So with an object that, you know, you do the traditional, you paint, you base coat it, you wash it, and maybe you dry brush a highlight if you're doing it quickly. I found that with fire now, I like paint it, wash it a light color with lamy and medium, and then dry brush a darker color to get into the high areas. And it's just feeling confident that that'll work has been a big thing, and it's made that stuff faster, but also I think it genuinely makes it look better as well.
Yeah, fire is difficult because it's a very strange substance physically because its light source is directional depending on where you're looking at it. It's the lightsaber problem. It's where if you paint a lightsaber, you can't paint it as white in the middle.
No.
With glow around the edges, because then you turn the model slightly and the effect is ruined. The fire is the same. So I had this problem when I was doing what's his name? The God King's greatest warrior in Age of Sigmar.
The Celestant Prime.
The Celestant Prime. He's got a scepter that can call down witches.
And he's standing on a swirling vortex of magical energy that in no way resembles a model of the solar system.
Absolutely not. No worries here. So that's an interesting one because, like, if you look at it you paint it as though the ball is the source of the flame, so it's the brightest point. But it's kind of, the fire comes off it in a 2D sort of way. So it's a ball with a 2-dimensional trail of fire coming off it. I was like, how do you paint it from directly a head angle to maintain the brightness of the ball at all?
I hit that with
angles?
my Chaos Sorcerer Lord, who's holding a very similar orb of
glowing balls
on fire. Yeah. A great ball of fire, you might say.
There are a lot of balls on fire in Warhammer. So that's a weird problem, and that's why they often end up looking unnatural, or sort of fudged or cartoonish. It's because you physically can't achieve the effect that it demands.
I think sometimes less is more with that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like a very thin glaze over white often gets you the most of the effect.
Yeah,
that just looks like a hot thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's going to be interesting too. There's loads of kind of smoke, which I've no idea how to paint smoke at all.
Yeah, like, again, often less is more. The more you do, the more it looks like you've painted a cabbage. This is the thing I've learned. Right?
Cabbage,
like, the more paint you put on something, the more solid it looks. That's a legit thing. Like, jokes aside, that's a thing, right? If you paint your smoke or your fire or something like white or very, very light grey, and then you start applying washes to it, there's such a, as with all models, there's like this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough, this is done and I fucked it. Like the journey that goes on. I think with the first set of flamers I did go too far. Like I was like, maybe if I add yellow, that'll help. And it's like, nope.
That's like, now.
Every road is cabbage after that point. Like everything you do, add a bit of purple, guess what? Sometimes cabbage is purple. Add a bit of blue, sometimes cabbage is blue.
Yeah.
Like I've learned, actually, that, you know, some bits of cabbage look a bit red. Like, you can't, I found there isn't a colour left to me.
Yeah.
That doesn't make things something like more like cabbage. So the way to do it is to do less, which is, you know.
Yeah, it's a good solution. Yeah,
if you have my specific problem with everything like cabbage, yeah.
I'm interested in getting into object source lighting. What is that what it's called?
Yes, OSL.
OSL.
Source light.
Which is just glow effects basically, but actually expanding the glow effect onto surrounding areas and bits of armor and stuff that would reflect it, and kind of thinking about where the light would fall. It's kind of an interesting, fun challenge, especially if you're using it on a model you don't mind ruining. Yeah,
I've started to do it a little bit, like the flamer has it around its mouth,
cool.
Partly as a way of getting out of painting teeth. But yeah, like, and that was dead simple. I took the lightest flame dry brush and just let it spill slightly, and that was done basically.
Yeah.
You see some like amazing, like often airbrushed like OSL examples where like the light, it's like a character standing in a dark room holding often a bright flaming ball.
Right.
That, like, it's just, you know what I mean? And it's perfectly judged so that the light is only hitting them. I think that's an amazing technique for like a display model or like a competition entry. But I think for a tabletop model, often you want it to be a bit subtler because, again, the viewing angles are going to vary so much. And it's another one of those things where, you know, if you're going to do that right from behind, the model is going to be like totally dark.
Yeah. I see like a lot of kind of OSL attempts where people just sort of spray an area like a bit of a plasma gun, and the gradient around it kind of becomes the glow, but that isn't what light does. So like when you see people who are really good at OSL, they actually think about where the light isn't going to touch, and actually right next to the right next to the light source on a gun, if it's the surface is rotating, curving away from the light, like it's not actually going to get much of the light. Like the bits that are actually going to pick up the light are like the shoulder pads nearby and like bits of the mask and stuff that's reflected further away. It's all that kind of interest. It's a really interesting artistic challenge to try and do it.
Yeah. I found that you can fudge it a little bit on like it. Again, it depends. I think it's a very sophisticated effect that isn't worth going into too much detail for like a line unit, something like that.
For sure.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, if you're really going to do it, then you have to, it's a surprising investment of energy.
And I don't like it when it becomes the point of the whole model. Like, it's like, the whole model is an exercise in object, OSL. Then it should be about what the fantasy of the model is representing, shouldn't it? And OSL should be a technique that you use to kind of reinforce that this cabbage is glowing.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. The impact of a glowing cabbage on its surroundings.
Exactly.
Essentially.
Is very important.
So yeah, so the other model I painted totally on a whim, and because you came around and we were talking about various chaos models and stuff, and then you pointed in, I think, the Index Chaos book, I suspect. I think we were recording regular Crate and Crowbar. You pointed at the model of the Changeling and said, "Are you going to get one of them?" And I was like, "No, I don't think so. I don't think Space Marine my army." And then I kept looking at it, and then I read its rules again, and then I was like, actually, yeah. So I did a bad thing and added, given my backlog of Tzeentch already, I just went to the shop and I bought the guy, and then I immediately painted the guy, which is a very satisfying thing to have done.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't add to my backlog technically. I just didn't help my backlog.
The backlog stayed the same.
Yeah.
But you got a cool model at it.
Yeah. And I'm really like, and so that was, and then I just put him together really quickly. Like, I had an idea. So there are elements of his base where I'd used, he's sort of a willowy demon mage, faceless demon mage with 4 arms, surfing a column of swirling magic that has faces in it because of Tzeentch.
Standard.
Yeah.
It's everyday Tzeentch object.
And, but there's an effect that I'm going to be using again on another model, which is probably obvious if you know what I'm working on. That I wanted to practice. So his column of magic is emerging from a portal, on the base, which was something that I've been thinking about doing for a really long time. And I decided and it's a point I bought the plastic card in March. And then I was like, fuck it, just do it, you idiot. Just actually do this. And if it looks bad, try it again. If it doesn't look bad, you can always just use a different base if it doesn't work. But I'm really pleased with how it's come out, and I think it's really set the model off. In fact, I think that's one of the, given how quickly I painted that model in 3 days, it's one of the first ones that I've gone oh shit, there's a few really simple things I've done with it that make it look a lot better than it is probably. It's a lot higher contrast with sharper gradients, and it turns out, because I was actually following the heavy metal paint scheme off the front of the box, which I don't normally do.
Yeah.
I made some changes, but, the changes I made were predominantly green cabbage related. Changed the color of his skin as well. But that was just I'm going to try and, I'm looking at the gradient they've done. I'm going to try that. And it turns out that the really high contrast, high contrast light and shadow, but with quite sort of vibrant, blending and, on things like fabrics, wavy fabrics, looks good to your eye, but cameras fucking love it. They just can't, you know what I mean? It just sort of catches something about,
yeah. They do paint for the cameras incredibly well, don't they?
Yeah. And so that's been an interesting thing to learn. Because it made me realize, maybe that's, you mentioned it before and I've shared the same thing. It'd be lovely to get a model into White Dwarf or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think maybe that's one of the things that really helps is painting for the camera a little bit. So that'd be my other thing. Yeah.
The Changeling does look as though he's in the middle of a photo shoot and, the director's kind of working him and he's just kind of different poses.
It's a great example of a model that I think is in a hero moment. We'll talk about this in a moment.
Yeah,
the games we played. That's a model that has one spectacular hero moment when it plays. And it feels like it's in the middle of that moment. It's sort of swirling out of this portal. Well, particularly given the base I've done. Sort of pulling a fireball out of thin air with 3 of its hands. It's a good, awesome. Another great example of a pose that's not explicitly a power pose. It doesn't have legs, so it can't do the wide stance, look at my weapons kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's a really, talking about 20 quid monopose models, that's one that's I wouldn't do anything else with this.
Yeah,
if I did this, it would be rubbish.
It does look amazing. It's a fantastic model. And it's ace in the game as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Really, really interesting rules.
And then I made a little portal on his base with plastic card and green stuff, basically.
So that was a kind of dry run for your,
another man who's coming. Yeah. Another big man.
Which is at some point.
Yeah. And then the other thing I did, was I painted a 4 foot by 4 foot terrain board. Which is the one I bought at the Games Expo that I mentioned last week.
That is a fantastic game board.
It's been really good. If you look at the show notes for this episode, you'll see pictures of the games we've played on it. It's made such a difference having a board. And amazingly, like, I thought when I bought when I bought a 24 tile 6 foot by 4 foot board that I was giving myself a project I might never finish. I committed myself to trying to do 4 feet by 4 feet, which is about enough for a 1,000-point game in time for this episode. And it turns out it's really easy. You buy a massive brush, you base coat it, and then you just do lots of big swirly dry brushes to reflect sort of terrain colors and, you know, like sort of like the shifting the way the wind would blow sand and then the sort of thing that makes something look natural, basically, to look at pictures of sand, essentially. And then fill in all the rocks and the little details, and you've got a huge game board. And I was pleasantly surprised by how quick it was. I mean, you've mentioned before, like, painting terrain is a way of taking a break.
It's a holiday, isn't it?
Yeah.
For the hard
this
stuff.
was totally that.
Yeah.
Like, just, like, it felt like a decorator just, like, smacking a dry brush up and down these huge relatively, 1 foot by 1 foot panels. And suddenly, like, you know, made some mistakes, glossed over some things you don't really notice. And when it's on the board, it looks great. So, yeah.
It looks absolutely fantastic, and it's really well designed. The way the panels fit together are really secure, and they fit really tightly. And actually, we've got the 4x4 board overhangs on 2 sides of the table, but it's completely stable, completely fine. An oil model sit on it, and it doesn't move around. Yeah, it's just brilliantly designed and looks great. Really couldn't recommend it enough.
So if you're interested, that's a Tablescapes board by Secret Weapon Miniatures. Games Workshop do Realm of Battle boards, which are 2 foot by 2 foot panels. Like, I'm glad I went in this direction, partly because the board I've got is a lot more neutral, whereas the GW boards tend to be quite specific to one of the settings.
Yeah.
But also, like, the fact that it's so modular means that, like, I feel like it's easier to swap things in and out. And it feels like this, I've done it in sort of like a grey-blue wasteland, essentially. But that can form the basis of pretty much anything we're going to want to do. Like, specifically, it was designed to look like the Realm of Metal for my Age of Sigmar army, but it could easily be a wasteland, industrial wasteland outside an imperial city, or a surface of a moon, or the planet of the sorcerers, or, you know what I mean? Like, it'll adapt really nicely. Whereas the Realm of Battle board, if I got the AOS one with the big cogs on it, perfect for Realm of Metal, but it's never going to look right for 40k. Similarly, if I got the 40k imperial city one, then it's never going to look right for that. So,
yeah, really too specific. And the old Realm of Battle board has these big hills on that are apparently not meant to play on.
Right.
Because the models slide off them all the time.
Yeah, there's some issues with that, but that's because pink horrors are like a nonsense barrel of monkeys situation when it comes to
they're always going to do that.
And yeah, something that's been really cool about that is because it's 1 foot by 1 foot panels, you can see the joints between them. You kind of elides them after a while. But actually, turns out they're having a sort of essentially what is a 1 foot by 1 foot grid drawn on the board. So you always have like an easy reference to 12 inches. It's actually really nice when it comes to like gauging distances and sort of getting rid of some of the busy work of both 40k and Age of Sigmar of just sort of figuring out like what does 12 inches from the edge of the board look like practically? Like, do we have to draw a line temporarily whilst it determines deployment zones? No, it's just that row of panels.
Yeah, it's
really nice.
Yeah, sweet.
So
really great.
We should talk about before we get onto our battle report for this month. We've played quite a few more games. So should we? I mean, I know you've played some. Do you want to start with the 40k that you've played before we played 40k together? Because that might be an interesting experience.
Yeah, so it's my first game of 40k, which I played against my friend Chimp, and he brought his Dark Eldar, who are now called Drew Carry. And it was a force of skimmers and flying units and a straight up plane that just flew around the board.
What size of the board were you on?
It was quite small, so it was I can't remember. 3 by 3, something like that.
Right.
Bit smaller than it should be, really. The ship, the plane has a minimum move distance. And if it goes off the board, it's dead to all intents and purposes. And Chip could barely keep it in the board. So it had to run one route round and round and round, or else it was dead because it was just flown off the board and exploded.
Like the bus from Speed.
But that was interesting. I put down my Death Guard, which is just what you get in the Dark Imperium box, which is 20 Poxwalkers, Noxious Lord of Nurgle, whatever his name is, the general with the big axe.
Putrid. No, that's not. That's a different guy.
There's a guy with an enormous bell, whose name I've also forgotten.
I think that's the Putrid Blightbringer.
Putrid.
I think you got the Putrid Blightbringer. It's really hard to say. The noxious
smoke face.
Grot Snotter.
The wizard who's got a blowing a noxious cloud out of his palm. Quite cool. So yeah, they're your 3 heroes. Then you've also got 7 Plague Marines and a fetid
bloat drone.
Yes, which is a hideous flying drone which trails pipes along the floor. And the idea of it is that it sucks all the horrible juice out of the ground, and then it goes into this big nurgly belly that is kind of this fleshy sack that hangs under it. And then it turns it into this horrendous poison that it then sprays out of these 2 nozzles on everything. And it's the most powerful thing in the game, as far as I can tell at the moment.
Yeah.
in my experience. So that's the army. The Death Guard force that comes out the box is very, very slow, and there's not a huge amount you could do with it tactically, I don't think. Because they just walk very slowly towards the enemy and then sort of hope for the best. The bloat drone is really fun to use because it's kind of like a hunter-killer thing. It's only got a range of 9 inches, so you have to really think about hiding it and kind of whipping it out to kill something and then go back into hiding again. It's also very good because if it gets charged as a flying unit, it can retreat and shoot, which is a great way of getting away from Terminator, say. So it just happens as, I think all Death Guard games are going to happen if you play with just the box set. I put all my heroes in bubble wraps, so put the Poxwalkers into one big 20 zombie unit and just wrap them around the heroes, because in 40k you have to shoot the nearest unit if you can't target characters that are unless they're the closest thing. So against knowing that I could be attacked from all angles, given that he's running skimmers, I just put this big, very, very resilient bubble wrap around those characters and march them all forwards. The dude with the bell bonged it. That made them go a bit faster.
You love your silly musical instruments.
Yeah, I'm all about that. Yeah, they've been Geraldo for life.
Very slowly forming a band.
Yeah, and they just sort of bong their way forwards and then don't quite ever die because they've got this disgustingly resilient save, which is 5+ saves against pretty much everything except mortal wounds. They have lots of invulnerable saves, especially the heroes. They've got, lots of wounds. They're just very, very, very resilient and hard to get rid of. And that's what Jim found really. And he struggled because, Drukhari combat units aren't that great, or at least the ones he had weren't. So that they would disembark from a skimmer and then the bloat drone would just instantly kill them. It would just come out from behind a wall, vomit on them, they'd melt, and then that would be the end of that. And he eventually got another unit into combat with them, eventually shot off the Poxwalkers, which basically just give you shooting cover for the entire game, as far as I could tell, because when I use them again against you, Chris, that's how I use them, because it just stops your guys from taking any damage. And then if you're in close, your Lord of Contagion is going to do serious damage. I can't remember, I think I lost the game on objectives because we were playing Maelstrom mode. And this is where you draw cards and they give you objectives for the turn that you go and complete for points. And they could be things like, Lightning Breaker, where you need a unit in the enemy's backfield by the end of the game, in the enemy's deployment zone. They could be like Kill a Hero, or, and there were 6 capture points on the board, and you draw something like Own Capture Point 1, and then you get a point. And what happened was it was so kind of arbitrary what you were doing at any given moment that it felt more like we were playing 2 different single player games. And in my turn, I'd draw and just kind of cash in as much as I could. And, in Jim's turn, he would do the same. And then in the end, he came out in front because I had to kill a warlord and just wasn't in a position to do it. And so it felt like there wasn't a story to the game because it was so mad, and there was no didn't feel competitive because I wasn't actually thinking about his army too much beyond just what can I kill to get that capture point at any given moment.
Yeah.
So I think next time we'll do, as one of the more structured kind of match play setups, and make them fight that way.
Well, that's a good segue to the open war cards. So this is something else that's come out very recently. We just played our first game of 40k. Which aren't going to be a full battle report, partly because We didn't take any pictures, but
None of it's painted though. Well, your stuff's painted.
so yeah, so we had, we thought maybe we'd do like Tzeentch Demons versus the Death Guard, but then I realized, hang on, I've just finished painting loads of Space Marines. They're just from the wrong era. So we decided to have a game which is a little bit like one of those sort of, like a mad thing happened in the warp one day. So we had we had some 30k era Thousand Suns, 2 units of Tactical Marines and Ahriman and some Terminators encounter a kind of eerie Death Guard force, maybe in the warp, maybe sometime after the Thousand Suns were ripped from Prospero and kind of thrust into the Eye of Chaos. They hit a Death Guard, a heavily corrupted future vision of the Death Guard coming the other way through the warp, right? Like different, separated by 10,000 years, but...
And those two gods never miss a chance to beat each other up.
Indeed. So, and to play the game structure, we play this on the new terrain board, and also the fact that it was set in the warp made it make sense that we used AOS terrain.
Yeah, it kind of worked.
Blood NATOs everywhere. But and so to structure this, we use the something they brought out this week or last week, which are called the Open War cards, which is a deck of cards, costs a tenner, and I'm really taken with it. I would happily play all my games this way, I think, short of any of the kind of really interesting scenarios. I'd love them to do this for AOS.
Yeah, definitely.
So the way it works is, it's a deck of cards, but you split it into 5 individual decks. And, one deck is called Objectives, one deck is Deployment, one deck is Twists, and then you have Ruses and Sudden Death. And this is designed to allow you to play a game with literally whatever models you happen to be holding when you decide to play a game. And we've always been a little bit wary, like AOS encourages you to do this, like open play what you want, ignore summoning values, just do stuff. And we've always gone like, no, we'll balance this, right? And I think the cool thing about this was almost like as a test of A, the power level system, and B, that philosophy of like, just go with it and trust us a bit, right? Don't faff over being exactly 1,000 points for a moment, just play. But the way it works, I think, is really clever. So you shuffle all the 5 different decks, and then we draw an objective card, which for the game we played was then Kingslayer, which meant that at the end of the 5th battle round, you would add up the value of every single unit that you add up the power levels of every unit you'd succeeded in killing, and the player with more wins. However, as a twist on that sort of format, which is obviously a very simple format, if the enemy general is dead, you double your score. So killing the general is, you don't only get their value, but you get like a 2 times multiplier on everything else.
Yeah.
So, interesting way of doing the kill the general kind of archetype as well.
Yeah.
And those scores are calculated even if your entire force is dead, you can still win if you killed more. Which is a way of balancing imbalanced points values to an extent. Then you draw a deployment card, which indicates how the deployment values would be set up. And we actually got like the most generic one, like 2 lines.
Yes.
But there are some in there that are mad, like one team in a circle in the middle, the others at the corners, like that kind of thing. And then you draw a twist, which is something else that applies to the game. So that could be like a storm in the warp. We got, like a night encounter. So it meant we were fighting at night, which meant that all shooting and spells were restricted to 12 inches initially. And then at the start of each new round, so after both of us had gone, we'd roll a dice, and on a 4 up, the distance we could see had a chance to increase, basically, is a simple way of doing it. Which immediately, like, gave me a tactical headache as the shooty army.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, well, I have to account for the fact that Tom can hypothetically get closer to me, a lot closer, a lot safer than I'd like. And those are that's your game. And there's loads of different combinations of those. And I love that as an idea. Like, I love the fact that, like, we could play Kingslayer again, but with a different twist and a different deployment pattern. It could be a totally different game.
Totally different game. Yeah.
And then you deploy, you do all the stuff you're going to do, and then you add up the power levels of everything in your army. And if one player has more, so you had slightly more, you had 44 power level to my 39, so not vastly so, but you have more, then the player who has less draws a ruse card, which is then just like, which you then play immediately, pretty much. I think in all of them, you then play it straight away.
Yeah.
Which is like a buff you're going to get. So one example would be like, your men are feeling like they're determined about this battle. You're not going to have to take any leadership checks, which might change the way you use your hordes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I got a really interesting one, which was, ambush, where I got to choose up to 3 of my units, take them off the board even though they were already deployed, and then redeploy them anywhere more than 12 inches from your units. And so I didn't really want to do this because my plan for the game to an extent was that I was going to hang back and just try and survive for enough turns that the range would get up, like hope the sun comes up so they can shoot you and make, I don't want to be engaging you at 12 inches. But as it happened, I had deployed my Terminators in a teleportarium so they could deep strike. But actually the ambush was like a better version of deep strike because I didn't have to kind of...
They were there at the start of the game, so you could move and shoot and charge.
Shoot and charge and do that. So you'd hidden your bloat drone behind a little wall and I decided to place them immediately in the game. It was like an early deep strike.
Yeah.
So that they could ambush the bloat drone. And then the extra system the open war cards have is that if one player has double the power level of the other, then the underdog also gets a sudden death card, which is a hidden victory condition known only to them that allows them to instantly win the game if they fulfill it. And they're pretty cleverly designed. I think to use it in a way that would be fun, both players would need to know what they potentially were.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of the player who has so much more stuff to play with has to spend the game trying to guess what the other player is going to do is trying to achieve from a finite set of variables. I think that's really clever. We haven't played with that, but I think it's a really nice
Yeah,
system.
it's really cool. Really nice idea.
Obviously we can't do necessarily a blow by blow for that game, except the final score, people might be curious to find out, was 78 points to Tom, 6 points to me.
Yeah, it was some of the worst dice rolling I've ever seen. It was astonishing. I mean, the Terminators alone just failed to do anything at all for turn after turn after turn.
Well, not turn after turn, then they all died.
Then they died, yeah. They got vomited on and melted.
So yeah, the Terminators are a power level 14 unit, and I thought maybe it would be my best chance of taking down the bloat drone. So I think they are. They have a decent AP on their weapons and stuff. So I teleported them in, I charged, and the bloat drone is a power level 10 unit. I did 1 wound to it.
Yes.
And then all of the Terminators died.
Yeah. The drone can retreat and shoot because it's a flying unit. So it also overwatches. So, overwatch means you get to shoot the enemy, as they come in. But the bloat drone auto hits. Normally overwatch works so you roll the hits and on 6s they go through. Whereas the bloat drone just 6 up on them as they come in. And, it's like strength 7, AP 1.
Yeah.
And that strength is good enough against Terminators. If you
enough
just,
of the hits go through.
Yeah, you just
get through,
enough weight of dice and they're dead in 2 turns.
Yeah, I thought I might lose a few of them or something, but I was expecting to kill it.
Yeah.
Let alone do 1 wound to it and then lose the entire unit. So that was a downside. And so I formed my ranks and watched as you hid the drone so I couldn't kill it.
Yep.
And then the zombies and the Astartes and the multiple characters, the Nurgle characters came marching across the center of the board. The sun came up a little bit. There's a dramatic moment. My guns can finally sort of open fire on you. At which point Ahriman, who I was just using as a regular sorcerer, like a regular chaos sorcerer.
Yes.
Fails to cast 1 spell, to buff the unit next to him. And then immediately tries to do smite on one of your units, which is like mortal wounds basically. Fails his Perils of the Warp test and does 3 mortal wounds to himself. Yeah. And he only has 4 wounds. And obviously this is a game about killing a general. So I'm like, oh shit, I've almost killed my own general. But he's on 1 wound. We then shoot, not a lot happens, you guys move forward. The lines are closing in, and I'm like, okay, well, I could not cast Psychic Powers with Ahriman for a turn. But this is the turn that's if I have a chance of scraping some of this back, I have to have every advantage. And things like +1 to hit or free moves are a powerful thing, potentially. So, and also, Perils of the Warp is the downside of casting a psychic power, which means if you roll a double 1 or a double 6, you take some wounds. And that's not that likely. You know what I mean? Like, so I roll my first spell, and it fails. And I roll my second spell, and it is double 1 again.
Yep.
So Ahriman kills himself. You never even had to declare him as a target of an attack. My general, in this game of Kingslayer, my general managed to hoover himself into space.
Yep.
Without any assistance.
Sucked into a crack in reality.
Yeah. However, if a psychic is killed by Perils of the Warp, they explode and deal mortal wounds to every unit near them. So Ahriman managed to not only completely destroy himself with no intervention from you, but kill 3 other Space Marines at the same time. And then I shot at you a lot, not a lot happened. I did finally kill all the poxwalkers.
They are very, very resilient.
Well, they are if you take 9 5-up disgustingly resilient saves and pass 7 of them.
Yes. A fine moment.
The little smile on your face when I...
Yeah, it was mental dice for that entire game. It was so strange because it felt as though Nurgle had smiled on that battlefield.
Yeah.
That actually, that the forces of the 41st millennium, had the advantage over 30k people.
Just got steam. Like, it was just outright dumpstering.
Yeah.
There was no.
Then at the end,
glamour to it.
the drone flew up and killed off a load more space marines. The plague, the poxwalkers all died eventually. But then that put the Lord of Contagion in combat, and he killed 4 things a turn fairly easily. Yeah, that's it.
I did attempt one heroic charge from the surviving tactical marine squad, and they failed it. So they stood there and just took their beatings, basically. Yeah. And gunned down.
It was just
remorselessly.
A horrible massacre.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Yeah. I had a lot of fun though. That was my first game of 40k since it came out.
Yeah, I really like it.
I mean to go on.
Hopefully not. It's great. I think even though I find the Death God kind of dull, I really like the picking targets with different weapon types and that kind of aspect of the game, which is something that you don't get so much in AOS.
I think unless having, played quite more than relatively more than usual, a chunk of both games recently, I like the way they're different, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
I the turn mechanic in 40k, the fact that it goes back and forth, I think is right for that game. But actually there are things about the strategic level of planning for the potential of a double turn or potential of giving away a double turn in AOS that, I think genuinely adds something to that game. I think there's a risk with 40k system of it going back and forth is it can feel a little bit transactional. If you know what I mean? It's like, well, I've tried this and it hasn't worked, so I'm now fucked. If you know what I mean? In a way, obviously the turn handover, the rolling for who goes first every turn, every round is swingy in AOS. But weirdly, AOS seems to be a lesson in the more swingy something becomes, the less swingy it feels. If you know what I mean? Like, because, well, actually we should talk about this because we played 2 games of AOS, one that we'll go through in some detail and one we played on Sunday, so a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
On the terrain board and as part of a new narrative for our armies that we sort of set up. And I wanted to debut the chariot and I wanted to debut the changeling. So we came up with a way of doing that. And one thing that was sort of interesting was, that first game was very pure AOS in some ways because I finally did some things with rules that you didn't know I could do. But also because we didn't have any terrain for that game because it was just a terrain board. It was literally just armies on a board.
Yeah.
So the broad strokes is it became a cool fictional conceit that your, Stormcast forces had been sort of led to, Shimon, the realm of metal, seeking the silver tower that belongs to my gaunt summoner. This may be the story of how your Relictor got into the silver tower for our silver tower campaign.
Yeah, obviously.
It may be him looking for it again. We haven't quite figured that out. But we had this idea that the changeling, who's a demon that can take any form, this is a trap. This is orchestrated as a trap. The silver tower is not going to be where you think it is. Sigmar thinks that your forces believe that they're coming down, in the right place. But they've been deceived. Their guide through Shimon is a fire slayer, our friend Matt's character from Silver Tower, who's been guiding them and kind of, begrudgingly leading them through this sort of, these sort of metal-strewn wastelands. Only to turn out to be a trickster demon of Tzeentch.
Oh no.
Who, through the expenditure of 3 different destiny dice, is able to one-shot your Relictor on the first turn.
Yeah, wow.
That was a rad moment, because it was because you'd only taken 1 hero, so it was
my general was just 1 hero and the rest were just infantry, so that's it. General's off.
You won that game, obviously.
Yes. Yeah, it was a really good game, actually. It was Border Wars. There are 4 points. The point in your own territory is worth 1. The points equidistant between you are worth 2 each. And then there's 1 point in your opponent's territory, it's worth 4. And that's the kind of Hail Mary thing. If you can get a couple of turns on that, you're probably going to win. So it's a really interesting kind of, scrabble for territory. And I had, used my Vanguard Hunters for the first time.
Yeah, that was a really cool moment.
Yeah.
It felt like a little bit of a traditional you and me AOS game at the beginning. Because obviously I did my like, obviously you know that the dwarf is the changeling. Like, we used, you set up the changeling in your opponent's territory, and your opponent is sort of forced to treat it like a member of their army until it reveals itself, but it can't really do anything. It can slow a unit down, which was interesting. I had it slow down a unit of prosecutors. But, you know, its purpose is for that ambush. Like, it can kind of lurk around behind a hero model, then reveal itself, cast a spell, and guarantee the mortal wounds with destiny dice to kind of just wipe something out, which I think is an important part of the Tzeentch toolkit for dealing with certain things. And it was a neat thematic thing, but, you know, we used the dwarf model to represent it while it was hidden just because that's fun, not because it was a sort of massive thing.
Yeah, sure.
And then, but that was a sort of variant on a theme, which has been a lot of our games, because I rely a lot heavily on spells and things like that. A lot of our games and shooting start with like an overwhelming show of force by me, and you pulling it back through pure resilience and your own set of sort of special abilities and sort of things you can pull off. And that was what was really cool about this game is I thought I'd been sort of clever, like screening my backline with pink horrors and kind of being careful. But your hunters who can come on from any board edge arriving behind me to kind of like surge into my own sort of backfield objective, which was a sort of vortex of magical power, was both really thematic and also a really cool strategic moment in the game.
Yeah, and that's the pure fantasy of the Vanguard Hunters, which are amazing models. They're basically Stormcast with axes and bolt pistols, and they can come on 7 inches away from the enemy, and normally it's 9 inches. And the reason that's important is because you roll 2 dice for your charge. Getting a 7 is a 50-50. The odds of getting a 9 are lower. Yeah. So it was the big kind of 50-50 Hail Mary. If they get in, great. If I score that objective, that's 4 points, probably going to win because it's tight everywhere else on the board and it's probably going to be roughly stalemate. I also had the Fulminators in space, and my plan for the whole game was to keep them in space, and then when they came down, the hunters would come down on the same turn and try and just shock something off or fix a flank or get the back objective, the most expensive objective. But it turns out your flaming chariot came screaming down a flank and actually started to menace my own backfield objective. And I only had like 5 liberators on that 'cause you'd gone through some stuff. So luckily I rolled the 3+ I needed. The Fulminators came down in my backfield to deal with it, basically. So the chariot's aggression forced me to put the Fulminators in a defensive position rather than using it to capture aggressively. But that's a really cool moment as well. Just a lightning bolt coming down, the Fulminators coming out, charging down the Chariot of Tzeentch. They
were definitely the heroes of that game, and that was up for the next one as well, because something that I think that game revealed about our armies, and I'm starting to understand mine more. Like, I think there are a bunch of reasons why I lose every game of Age of Sigmar that I play, pretty much, is chiefly I'm bad, but broadly, my army is sort of expensive. In some ways it's costed like an elite army, but all of its power comes from special abilities, synergies, combos, and spells.
Yeah.
Stat lines are, by the game standards, below average for the most part. Like 1 or 2 things have okay weapons or the chance to do well.
Skyfire's good.
Skyfire's good. Don't have them yet because I've been focusing on my demons because that's kind of what I like. But you know what I mean? Like, for the most part, the Tzeentch demon army that I'm sort of seems to be focusing on now.
They don't have a paladin equivalent, for example.
No.
They don't have any.
Whereas, and almost, with the exception of things like the Vanguard Hunters and a few special abilities, Stormcaster go the other way.
Yeah, definitely.
You have cool things you can do, but the fundamental strength of your army is in its stat line, which just trends slightly above average, as fits them. They're, a little bit of the Space Marine archetype. Yeah. They're just slightly better at most things than the average person. And demons are slightly weirder at most things than the average person. The reason I think that's super interesting, and it played into that game a bunch, is it means that, I think one of the reasons I've been struggling with the game generally is it's almost impossible to forget stats because you read them every time you do something with the unit. Like I hit on a 3 or whatever. It's very easy to forget synergies. It's very easy to forget that if my horrors are within 9 inches of a herald, they get add +1 to their casting rolls, and that's a big deal. It's very easy to forget that if my screamers are within 9 inches of a herald, they turn enemy 6s to hit into 1s. Like, stuff, all this stuff stacks up and piles up, which is very appropriate to a demon Tzeentch army, which is all supposed to be sort of tricky and weird and shifting. But it's easy to forget. And, I did 2 bad AOS player things in that game, forgetting to charge with units that I'd moved in order to charge them, and I just forgot.
Yeah.
Which is dumb. It's the kind of thing you learn not to do.
Yeah.
But there were other moments like, I think when your Fulminators finally kind of wiped out my Flamers, I should have been able to roll a dice to see if the flame has split and come back.
Right.
But I just forgot to roll it. And then I sort of test rolled it off the table and got the 6 I needed, which would have made a big deal. So learning one for me was stop forgetting all of the things that your units you're paying for. You know what I mean? Like you're paying for those little addenda and, little footnotes and all those units. I have to actually use them. But the other side of it, and I'd be interested to see how you feel about it a couple of days later, is like, my stuff is shenanigansy. Your stuff is stolid and understandable.
Yeah.
Right? I knew your Vanguard Hunters come on from a board edge. I factored that in. I knew your Fulminators come down from space. Tried to factor that in. Not fully bubble wrapping my heroes, but having things behind them so they can't just be, jumped
ambushed.
On. Yeah. The one of the moments of the game which was like, I can do this now is you pulled off your kind of gambit with the hunters. You charged my backfield objective for 4 points. You'd piled into the pink horrors that were guarding it. Most of whom were out of range to claim it. It was about who had more models within 6 inches. You'd done a crazy gambit sending the one surviving prosecutor all the way down the board to join them.
To just about tip the
To just about have one more model in range. Because you knew that I was going to remove the models. When you killed the pink horrors, I was going to remove the models that were out of range in order to keep them in. And you did all of that. And the thing that you didn't, well, it's not that you didn't necessarily account for, but the thing that kind of happened is then I roll Battle Shock for the pink horrors and I commit a 1 from my destiny pool. And when pink horrors get a 1 for Battle Shock, you roll a dice and that many of them come back.
Right.
And I rolled a 5. And so obviously I just put them back in the unit. So I put them in range of the objective. Suddenly everything you'd done had been completely counteracted by, my special rule. And that was obviously a bit of a sad moment at the time.
It's a learning experience. What I should have done is not attack you. You can charge and not attack. So what I should have done, which is stupid, but I should have charged them in and just had them not actually attack anything.
Yeah.
Which is is dumb. It's not a war game, is it?
To some extent, but so this is an interesting thing before we get onto like the game we just played, because this is important context to that. I feel like we've both learned loads about our armies. And there's an interesting question because there's a game feel question. Like, I know from the look on your face that moment didn't feel great because you'd done what you felt was like the gambit.
Yeah.
And it hadn't paid off, not because of a combat roll or something kind of honorable like that.
Right.
But because of basically demon bollocks.
Yeah. But it's to be expected. It's themey. I think that, it undermines your decision making in a way that feels very bad. So you make the right decision. You do everything right, but then
the question I have is, so every part of what I did was public information. You knew I had a 1 in my Destiny dice pool. You knew Pink Horrors can do that on a 1.
Yeah, I forgot.
If you know what I mean? Like, there's the element of like, so that's then, it's not to say that, because I think I guess my feelings about it was you had made absolutely the right decision against a different unit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they had been, Blood Reavers or a cheap corn unit, that would have been absolutely the right choice. Against Pink Horrors, you have to behave slightly differently.
Yeah, you have to not attack them.
Yeah, sometimes.
That's
if you're not going to wipe them out.
Yeah. It's odd being combat not attacking, but that is literally one of the only situations where you have to be careful about it. But then I'll be careful about it in future. I think the problem is that the game kind of, in order to make good decisions, it requires me to know your entire army book and every synergy. That's true. Whereas the reverse is a much better experience for you because my units are just much more understandable.
That's true. Although I think the reverse is also like I've had to do backflips the other way. It's like I've had to learn more about my synergies and more about what I can potentially do.
Yeah.
Because, so that game ended in a really spectacular fashion with the one surviving Fulminator basically charging the length of the board to claim my backfield objective on the final turn.
Yeah.
To win you the game, which is a great story moment with this idea of like, this is a Stormcast beachhead. They've been ambushed. Their general's been assassinated on the first turn.
Yeah.
And it's one heroic Fulminator that manages to break the line and from a purely role-playing point of view, drive a fucking lightning spear into this fount of demonic energy and buy them some time to regroup and recover.
And actually set up a bastion there.
Yeah. Which leads us into our next game.
Yeah.
What was interesting about, so that was a great ending that was enabled by everything that had gone wrong for you and gone right. So over the course of the game, I think the feel balances out, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it makes great stories as well.
But the thing I realized doing that is if I don't play it right, I can't kill some of those things. It's the problem the Fulminators in this game, the problem I used to have your Retributors, is they'd come down and
shaken.
my, spells can be swingy, that kind of thing. If it doesn't go spectacularly well for me, it's like, I just can't shift them. It's like, it's just this ball of stuff that not through any sort of shenanigansy rules, just through the sheer maths of 3-up saves and difficult wound rolls for me and that kind of thing.
Loads of wounds,
just walk towards me and I do the Zinchi dance and throw sort of marshmallows at you, and then you defeat me, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll return to the realm of chaos. Goodbye. And so, it's a very sort of like, I have to learn more about my army, and I have to learn more about how to account for that, rather than just hope that this time will be the time the spells do it.
Yes.
If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's made me think a lot more deeply about how the game works, and realize things like Pink Horrors, they're sort of good at a bunch of different things. They can shoot, they can cast spells, they're rubbish in combat, but they can be buffed. They're one thing that justifies them being so expensive is they're good in like every phase of the game. So the thing I've realized is the longer they're around, the better they are. Because they get to do more things if they don't die.
Yes.
So keeping them back and using them to sit on objectives in weird ways and then move around, and that, that has helped a lot. And it also means that I'm thinking more like a Zinch player. Like, I'm doing things that don't look right from a battle point of view. Like, sometimes the demons just leave. But that kind of capricious playstyle is actually very themey, and I think that's what's made me feel like it's not just like, and now I have rules due.
Yeah.
It's like, because I mean, you even said it during that game. Like, I think you used the phrase rules twat to define having that Fulminator pull out of combat and charge the objective in order to cap it and win the game.
Right.
But actually, that was super themey.
Yeah,
like,
I suppose so.
It was like your Fulminator was in a fight with the Changeling and one Flamer. And, no, that Stormcast warrior then just sees the actual problem across the battlefield.
Yeah.
And the general's dead. Someone's got to make a clear-headed decision, and he spurs his lizard mount on and charges across the battlefield and wins it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's true.
It didn't feel like you exploited some crazy wording. It felt right.
Yeah, I mean, that's using the core rules, isn't it? I mean, if it's in the core rules, everyone understands everyone else's maneuverability and fundamental actions and what they're able to do in a combat. So it feels like they're the rules of war in a way.
Yeah.
And that you're exploiting those. The difference between the Zinch thing is that, I'm not going to read your book, in order to be able to play against you. And that's when it feels very different, because you're operating on different rules that I don't know or have access to. And therefore I can't really I don't know how to behave or what to do with my units that isn't going to get kind of counteracted in crazy ways.
I do think that's a relatively universal experience to some extent. Like my learning experience over a lot of the games we've played has been just learning, I can't actually kill that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, I think this is enough advice to, no, it's not.
Or don't stand near that building.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We should talk about the game this led to. Cause it's the game we're going to go through blow by blow a little bit. So we've, a couple of days later, today we came back to that scenario. Essentially, a Stormcast had survived the ambush on the beach and moved up into an area that now had some terrain in it.
I remembered to bring the terrain this time.
Indeed.
Useful.
Like a kind of, sort of ruined, mysterious ruined settlement with lots of eerie, arcane bits and bobs.
The battlefield looked amazing with the terrain on it as well.
Yeah, the photos are really good, I think. And Relictor returns because they're very good at coming back from Azir.
Masters of Death.
He's brought the Heralder and a bunch more units, a lot more shooting, long strike crossbow men. Which
I wanted to use them for the first time, which is interesting.
And I decided to swap out the Gaunt Summoner and the Changeling and bring in Chaos Sorcerer Lord and the Ogoroid Thaumaturge, the Doom Bull kind of Minotaur Man. Kept the Chariot, added some Screamers, Herald on disc, and some Pink Horrors. We played an interesting scenario, which is hold the line. I think
Take and Hold.
Take and Hold. That's the one. Where each of us has one objective in the middle of our territory. If at any point you hold both of them, but that requires having units on both of them, with the enemy having no units on them, you instantly win. Otherwise, after 5 rounds, it comes down to whoever has killed the most. And this was, I think, a really interesting game. Partly because I decided to build my army just from a sort of spells and upgrades kind of way, in a way that I've never done before.
Yeah.
And so specifically, I piled a lot of different synergies onto the Ogoroid Thaumaturge including making him my general, giving him a command ability, giving him an artifact, giving him a spell, all to boost his melee prowess, to make him, like a combat monster at least for one amazing round.
Yeah.
Because I rely a lot on spells to get damage out, and I wanted some power in reserve. However the game panned out, that I could use to actually punch a hole in a Stormcast line, which has always been my problem. It's like throwing things at a Stormcast line and going like, well, I guess I didn't do anything. Goodbye.
Yeah.
What were your kind of army construction thoughts?
So I basically took the stuff I wanted to use because it was new. I do use the Vanguard Hunters on Sunday, so I wanted to use the long strikes to see if they were useful. And plus they're always potentially good against Tzeentch or armies that use Lynchman heroes. They are snipers, basically. They have these enormous crossbows that they have to put on little stilts because they're so huge. And they've also got an Aether Wing that warns them if someone's about to charge, which is awesome. They're really gorgeous models. So I took them. The rest was a couple of units of Liberators who are just battle line standard hammer and shield dudes. Then I took a unit of Judicators who are the very good shooting unit that Stormcast have, another kind of battle line unit. And I had my Heraldor and my Relictor and 2 Formulators. Who are the dudes riding dragons who are
Very, very, very scary.
They're very, very, very good in the game. One of the best units of the game.
Also, we should say we teleported in a rule from a different scenario for fun.
Yes.
Which was, I think it's called like sort of Ferrous Storm or something like that. And it's from another scenario set in the realm of metal. The idea is at the beginning of every round, as in before either of us have taken our turn for a particular round, we roll a dice. On a 6, a storm of iron shards has swept through the area, which reduces all shooting and spellcasting to 3 inches, and every unit has a chance to take a mortal wound. If it takes a mortal wound, it then can't run or charge for the rest of the turn, which is really interesting, because as a magic and shooting heavy army, it has potential to completely shaft me, but like we'd picked that before we'd settled on the exact armies, and it was interesting that you got on very ranged heavy as well with the long strikes and the Judicators. And so at the very beginning of the game, just to explain something about how I set up, and actually thinking for once, I realized that like, I lose loads trying to charge you because the thing is about, I've got good spells and good shooting, but everything I've got is an 18-inch range and everything of yours is 24 or more. So in a straight fight, you'll get at least one turn where you're shooting at me and I can't protect everything. And I'm probably going to lose something important, a hero or, I can't, doesn't work like 40k. I can't hide a hero. So my thought was, I'm going to hide and I'm not going to risk. I'm going to let Tom come to me. I'm going to hope something important comes my way that I can kill.
Right.
And I'm going to hide, but if the storm kicks in, that's when I'm going to take advantage of flying movement on screamers and things like that. And then I'm going to run in. Because then, under the cover of the storm, I can potentially get on top of you so that we have at least a turn where we're both shooting rather than just you.
Yeah.
And that was game plan. Also, I'm not going to stand next to buildings if I can possibly avoid it. But I also want to hide behind buildings so you can't shoot me.
It's a classic conundrum.
A conundrum. So I got the first turn. There was no storm. And my first turn was basically just spent casting defensive spells on myself and hiding, like retreating to the back of the board. Because you deployed in a kind of really solid, great-looking Stormcast
the
sort of
golden
defensive
line
formation. And your opening gambit.
My relic has a spell called Lightning Chariot that casts on a 3+, and anyone within 3 inches, you can just send them surging forwards on a wave of lightning. So they can just go 24 inches up the board, and that counts as their move, essentially. And then they can charge from there, they can shoot, they can do stuff, but essentially it just gives them a great big punt forward. It's very good for combat units. So I used it on my Formulators and sort of sent them up that flank, on the same flank as the Bull Dude.
So the Bull Dude and the Castle Sword were hiding behind a building on that flank.
And the Flame Chariot was on that flank.
Yes, it was.
And I know that if I kill one or two of those things, nothing else can hurt me. So I just go and try and kill it, basically. Because the pink horrors are fine, really. And the zappy spells can do some mortal wounds, which Stormcast tend to worry about, but not enough to actually endanger the rest of it. So I think I just grind out or win based on that. So I just, sent them up and waited to see what would happen. Hoped I could get a charge off.
And so I I then won the roll-off for the second round, which was important. That was an important roll-off, particularly because one of the things I had been thinking about in the time since we played our first game and things I've been trying to crack, because I'm going to do a tournament with this army. I need to figure this stuff out, is how do I kill something like a Fulminator? Because each one has 7 wounds, which is a really important number, because it means that even some of my D6 mortal wound spells, I can't Destiny Dice them off.
No.
Right? Not without multiple, it's a huge expense in terms of my game momentum. Like, I really have to pile everything, and even then, some of the other siege spells can do it, but it's super swingy. There's a lot of D3 damage rolls that could go wrong, and a lot of them. So I can't, So, this allowed me to initiate my plan, basically, which was to pile every buff in the world onto the Ogre Thaumaturge, who is as close to a really good fighting unit as I've got. I gave him a command ability that allows him to potentially do mortal wounds on wound rolls of 6s, but also +1 to his wound rolls. Also rerolling 1s for everything. Also Mystic Shield. Also he has mortal wounds when he charges. So I moved him out from behind cover, and I mean, this is obviously, again, there's one of those moments of the face falls as you see that I'm just casting. Every wizard in the army just turns and starts piling power into the Ogre Thaumaturge. Yeah. Who presumably has tattoos to sort of erupt with magical energy.
He's going to go Super Saiyan, basically.
He goes Super Saiyan, runs around the corner of the building. And I committed, a Destiny Dice to basically confirming the charge, because failing the charge at that point is game over. I'm totally.
Yeah.
So confirm the charge, get him in. The chariot did fail its 5-inch charge, but oh well.
Yeah, chariot's fine.
I think it might have made a difference because of what happened next, but basically, and also I'd given the Thaumaturge an item it could use once in the game that allowed it to fight twice in the combat phase, basically.
Right.
So I fight, then you fight, then I fight again. And this was kind of the result that I wanted, was to hit that unit as hard as I possibly could to buy myself some space.
Yeah.
So the Thaumaturge, over the course of its 2 rounds of attacks, managed to do 12 wounds to the Fulminators, killing 1 and getting the remaining 1 to 5 health.
Yes.
Which was really, really wanted to kill it. Both. But I think I might have done if I'd gotten the chariot in as well, or I'd have a better chance at doing it. But I'll take it. It was a really good, result for me in terms of the plan coming together, essentially.
So that took one of them off, and then I think they stayed in combat for another turn.
They did. So the next turn was the one where you've got the Heralder in range of the ruin.
That's right. So the Heralder was just walking up normally, and this is the trumpeted guy. He blows his horn at scenery and it explodes, dealing mortal wounds to stuff nearby. So he honked at the building everything was hiding behind, and rolled a 5, which is a good result, means everything in 5 inches.
It was actually a perfect result, because if you'd rolled a 6, your surviving Fulminator would have been in range as well.
Yeah.
But so that alone did, I wrote down that it did 8 wounds total. Yeah. So it hurt the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, it hurt the Herald, it hurt the Chariot, and it hurt the Thaumaturge. Not enough to kill any of them, but it was definitely holy shit, that's a good value.
That's a good damage unit. But then, not stand next to buildings.
Yeah, except when you really need to charge some Fulminators.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was playing for the double turn really, and it didn't come off, because with the double turn, the Fulminators would have gone, just charged that buff, the unit hadn't been buffed yet. They've just killed him.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that didn't come off, and they're out of position, and they got charged by something insane that I didn't know could possibly happen. And that was what kind of sucked about it really, is that, it's just, what was I supposed to do about that? That didn't know it could happen, and then couldn't have planned around it or done anything about it. I certainly wouldn't have sent them anywhere near it if I
suppose we did. I suppose it's that thing, because we do go through the army list at the start of the game. But, feeling it and understanding the practical reality of it is a lot different. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you say it's hard to remember your own synergies. Just being read out a list of things at the start, I can't suddenly understand what.
No, absolutely. I do get it. I'm just sort of, it's interesting. It's a sort of, I think it'll be a perennial problem. Every time you encounter a new army, stuff like this will happen. Yeah, it's almost part of the fabric of the game.
But that means that I've lost a quarter of my army in points terms in a game that's all about points cost. So that's so far down. So I had to work really hard to kind of pull it back. I mean, that Minotaur stayed buffed as well. It got that double turn of combat in that one instance. You couldn't do that again, but it was still insane. It was still having a dragon on the field, essentially.
Yeah. So in that turn of combat, so this is the end of the second round, you got unlucky, and obviously the Heralder did an amazing amount of damage. Like, because I mean, the way I think about it is like, I piled, hundreds of points worth of units and upgrades that I only used once, and built my list to do that one thing. And obviously that was based on dice, so on. Like, in order to do 12 wounds total, to a tough unit. And the Heralder's just ability with no dice rolls involved, apart from the range of it, naturally did 8 wounds. So there's a sort of, like,
but you understood the situation that
I did.
You exposed yourself to that damage.
I think I did. And I think similarly that comes from my experience of being surprised by that in previous games. So this feels like what I'm saying, I guess, is that over a long view, I think these experiences balance out a little bit. Yeah. I think as you play one person at AOS a lot, or any game like this, you learn things. And I think actually the reason that I would defend it a little bit is in terms of our encounters, in terms of the story of the encounters between our armies as well. These feel like meaningful moments, like that swing one way or swing the other based on surprises. And, again, the thing I'm trying to, I guess, justify as some of this negative play experience stuff, or the negative experience of being surprised by something and losing to it, can translate into not only playing differently, but also they are moments, right? Like, they are still moments. Like, it's a moment when the very first game we played, where your Heralder honked at a big pool of lava and just coated half of my stuff. And I was like, oh, I guess he can do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think that's a very easy ability to understand, though. That's the difference between this and Tzeentch, where, like, I guess that Tzeentch does hide his power. That's the part of his whole deal. But in terms of, like, my decision was stupid, and it meant that, it felt bad because, it was an idiotic thing to do, but I had no way of possibly knowing that it was, if you know what I mean. And it's like, and it's that hindsight thing of like, well, okay, that just happened. So,
I mean, I suspect, like, surely in any strategy game context, moving a unit far out ahead of your army puts it at risk.
But the thing is, I've killed that thing before repeatedly, and I know what it can do. And then it suddenly became a different thing. It changed, it's each. But yeah, so it felt really crap, actually. I think it was good for the story of the game, but like, those swings can, when they make you feel like an idiot.
I certainly didn't want to make you feel like an idiot. I think it's an interesting discussion, because it's like, also, it was like one of the first times in my life that I haven't forgotten something important. Yeah. Like, I pulled off the buffs. I remember that the Chaos Sorcerer Lord has 2 different buffs, and I've always forgotten to use one of them. Yeah. Like, that's you know what I mean? The other side of it is part of that part of the reason you haven't seen this stuff is kind of constantly forgetting to use things that I'm paying points for. Yeah, so
stuff is kind of behaving differently now, like, on your side, because you're remembering to use it properly. So I'm like, oh, what? That can do that? I didn't know that. I've fought these things several times before, and that's a different, an odd experience as well. Yeah. I mean, not necessarily a bad one, though, I would say.
No, I think the flip side to that is, we've said before, I think, in the context of getting smashed every game on my part, that, this army is just not a good matchup for Stormcast. It can't crack them. Yeah. And this was me trying to find a way to change it and to play it differently. I'm very conscious that I never want to, like, gotcha an opponent with, like, that.
I think that's the definition of a gotcha, though, like.
To an extent, but it was also, I hid those guys behind a building in the hopes that you would send the Fulminators to kill them, because you weren't going to get to shoot them.
Yeah, like, then trigger the gotcha moment.
but that's a bait. At what point does that not become a legitimate strategic choice to kind of bait base
an important unit down the flank? Yeah, sure. I mean, it was good. It just felt bad. Yeah. But that's fair. So I was down like 260 points there.
You lost them on the next turn, but and then they did survive that turn. But
they were really bad. They'd rolled badly as well. So they get there. An amazing.
That was genuinely unlucky. You probably should have killed the Thaumaturge then.
I think so. It had 2 wounds left, and the Dracula's got an amazing breath attack that does D3 attacks, and if any of them hit, it's 2 mortal wounds. And so that was just his shooting attack alone. And then in combat, he completely whiffed as well. So that was unfortunate. And then, the Ogroid Thaumaturge Minotaur charged down the flank, killed my Heralder, who certainly didn't stand a chance. And the Flaming Chariot came down with it. But I think this is perhaps when the storm happened.
So that was the turn the storm happened. Yeah, so like after that turn on our second flank, when the Fulminators died, the storm happened, middle of the game, turn 3. Kind of a nice moment in a way. Like,
it was cool.
And then I won the roll off for that turn, which meant that, I could enact that thought I had, which is like this is the turn I go. Like, so I charged up with the Screamers and some of my units took mortal wounds, but like the ones that the ones that did, luckily still have huge moves. So the fact they can't run is like, well, 16 inches across the board anyway.
Yeah,
fly. Moved the Flamer the Chariot as far as it could go, and the Thaumaturge up as far as he could go. Then committed, I moved my Pink Horrors up to get them into potentially shooting range next turn. And then committed more Destiny Dice to make sure they get some charges in on the Heralder. Because those guys hadn't been affected negatively. And it was a bit of a, like, it was a, you know, look at it, because the Storm restricted spellcasting range to 3 inches, I couldn't buff up the Thaumaturge. Well, he could buff himself, but he wasn't within 3 inches of any other unit, and stupidly my Chaos Sorcerer Lord had run away from the building in the hope, because if the Heralder didn't die, I did not want to get honked again.
No.
But that left him in a stupid position where he was basically out of range of everything for the rest of the game, just hiding.
He was standing in the very corner of the board.
Yeah.
Looking very scared.
Especially with a 3-inch range on stuff. So he cast his own buffs on himself for no reason, and then just like stood there like a lemon. But yeah, then the kind of, during the Iron Storm, the Algorith Thaumaturge and the Chariot were able to, kill the Heralder, which makes the battlefield a lot safer for me, because there was a lot of terrain on the board, and each of it is potentially a 6-inch mortal wounds bubble.
Yes.
So he had to die. Like, he absolutely had to die.
Yeah, he's good. 120 points.
Yeah, so that was a success. I think the Storm hurt you more than it hurt me.
Yeah, basically rendered my army useless. I'd like a lot of the damage output was shooting, and they couldn't do anything. So it felt like, well, I don't get to play the game for a turn, essentially. So I just had to castle.
You did get specifically unlucky in that the unit that could have done something. So your Relictor, withdrew from combat. You had some Liberators near the front that could have charged the Thaumaturge, but they were the ones that took a mortal wound.
Yeah. So they were affected by the storm and couldn't move or charge or do anything.
Yeah.
So which meant I couldn't screen as well as I'd like.
They could move, but they couldn't charge. You did move them up, I think. But
I moved them up, and I moved the other unit of Libs outwards to form a screen around my archers, and which looked pretty well. Looked like a thing an army would do.
Yeah, it did look like sort of holding rank against your...
against the onrushing demons.
Yeah.
Shield wall, move forwards, shooting over the top. It was proper, medieval stuff. It was great.
So the storm cleared at the beginning of the 4th round, and this was actually a big turn for you, where I thought maybe that it was going to completely swing the other way.
Yeah, well, I think because I chipped a lot of wounds off with the Heralder, so I was able to try and shoot off the Oggroid Thaumaturge, which I did successfully.
The Relictor killed him with lightning.
The Relictor zapped him and he died.
Yeah.
That was satisfying.
Which is a nice story moment as well, because those two have had rivalry since our very first game.
Yeah, they've hated each other for centuries. And
actually, finally, the other front of the Thaumaturge has justified it, because he hasn't just charged into the first thing and died instantly.
That's
his traditional role.
Yeah, he's done something. So that was good. He summoned his faith in Sigmar, called for aid, slammed his staff in the ground, and blew that Minotaur to dust. Then I shot the
Judicators killed the Chariot.
He had a couple of wounds left, and I think I chipped some wounds off your Heralder with the long strikes.
Yes, you did. Yeah, you got him down to 2 wounds, I think.
Yeah, so they could have killed him outright. Like if they hit, then bad things happen to. Very good for sniping off character models normally. They didn't get much chance to do anything with the game because of that lost turn and the fact that it was so hard to get them in range because they're very, very slow, which is an interesting thing to learn for future. Like if they're not doing something most turns, they're not worth their points at all because they're like 180 points. They're not cheap. So it was an interesting experience in learning how to basically not use them. Though later on I found a good use for them.
I think as well, for a lot of this time I was sitting on a Destiny Dice 6 that had ceased to be useful for damage or anything, and that was purely save a hero. That was the save a hero button.
Yeah, which is good. All these things coming rushing in. I'm trying to snipe the heroes off, but fundamentally, I'm not going anywhere. I've got nothing that can really move around, and it was also a mistake to build an army that couldn't move around a lot or didn't have those tricks. Like Stormcast need those mobility tricks to.
Yeah, you have Lightning Chariot,
effective.
and I guess you have the Deep Strike, but yeah.
Yeah, so Lightning Chariot's great, but I really missed the Vanguard. I really missed that threat. Just having the threat of being able to come on from somewhere to affect something or slow something down or pin something is actually really, really strong and really good.
It was interesting, because actually, that turn won you 320 points worth of damage. That was, which was pretty close to what I'd killed of yours by that point.
Yes.
Like in terms of pure equalizing, like it's not miles off. I think I was slightly ahead,
I think it was slightly ahead.
but only by about 20 points or something.
And it was, all the points I'd poured into shooting actually doing something, which is good.
Yeah.
And then it was actually ended up very, very close at the end as we went into the final turn, I think.
Yeah, into turn 5, because like my turn 4 involved like essentially like resetting in the middle of the board, like because the Herald, I found that the Herald on Disc's power stems from how maneuverable it is. So he'd gone to the flank to help the Thaumaturge, and then he just went straight back to the middle to lead the Horrors, who I now I'd stopped forgetting their bonus to cast when he's near.
Yeah.
And that was, conscious to kind of get that synergy up. Because I'd managed to run lots of stuff forward during the storm when they were safe. I still had like a full unit of 10 Horrors, Screamers and things, and the Herald, now within 18 inches of your Liberators. And I think for me, like, I appreciate there were things about this game that felt negative for you. For me, it felt like finally understanding what I could expect. Because when you pick up 10 dice and you roll them, like to throw the pink Horrors average as anything ranged attack into some Liberators.
Yeah.
It feels like there's only 5 of them. There's 10 of me. Fire! And then one of them takes 1 wound. And I've now played enough AOS to know that that's what I should expect to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
So plan for that. Like commit things like Destiny Dice 3s, which are not very useful, but that's on a D3 mortal wounds roll from any spell. That's 2 mortal wounds. And you've got a good chance of getting that or getting better than that, but you also got a chance of getting 1. And understanding the maths of 2 mortal wounds here is massively more powerful than 1, because then on average the pink Horrors are going to actually do enough damage to kill this unit. And you know what I mean? Like that,
Yeah.
those kind of very edge case things I've started to, I think, understand a little bit better.
Yeah.
Which meant that like, rather than like do what I've been doing a lot, which is like, charge all the pink Horrors in. Oh, they're gone. It was more like, charge the pink Horrors, move the pink Horrors forward a bit, throw a volley of magic and stuff, and then get ready to retreat if you need to.
Yeah.
Like that kind of, like,
Just seems like all over, isn't it? That's-
being a little bit smarter about it, I think, honestly. Like, or like not, because then I realized like, oh shit, like I need to win on points. Like I'm not getting into your objective for that major victory. Like you've got this huge golden iron steel shield wall around it.
Yeah.
But I did manage to charge the Screamers in. Hilariously, all 3 Screamers charged, 1 Liberator Prime. And traditionally our games do have a hero prime.
Absolutely.
Who took absolutely no damage from them whatsoever and then bonked one on the head and killed it.
Yeah. Classic. Liberator Prime is not to be underestimated. Yeah, but you managed to get some bolts off and kill that unit, which was huge in the end.
They died at the start of the next turn, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, so we were basically left in a situation where you'd kind of backed off. Because I think I had another round of shooting that was basically ineffectual.
So, no, because what happened was, that was, my turn at the end of round 4.
Right.
We went to start round 5 and I won the initiative, which is a big deal because it gave me a chance to get rid of the stuff. So, for once I was glad that the hero phase becomes more the movement phase. Traditionally, I wish movement came first so I could run things into range.
Yes.
But what that allowed me to do was, Arcane Bolt away that final Liberator Prime.
100 points on the tally.
Yeah. And also use a spell called Full Reality to return a Screamer to the slain Screamer unit, which just makes the unit less likely to die.
Yeah.
It was my only way of getting wounds back, but get that out. And then rather than just sort of blindly commit, realize that like this victory is mine. And from a story point of view, maybe it's that realization that like this Stormcast attempt to establish a beachhead has been blunted. Now is the time to withdraw, right? So the Screamers ran away. I moved the Herald back behind a wall. I moved that Chaos Sorcerer Lord back behind a wall. The Herald is dead, so no more threat from that.
Yeah.
And I withdrew with the pink Horrors. And the idea was to bring everything out of charge range for your melee units and as much stuff as possible out of range. As much of the close to death, expensive stuff.
Yeah.
Like my heroes, who were both on like 2 or 3 wounds, out of range of the long strikes and the Judicators. But then, because that was all I did for that final turn of the game, but I really, really liked the gambit you made on that final round to win the game.
We were so tight on points that if I killed 1 hero, I would scrape a victory.
Yeah.
So I moved up the Judicators so that 2 of them could see the Herald. Then I used the Relictor to Lightning Chariot the long strikes and successfully teleported them 24 inches up the board to a point where they could see the Chaos Sorcerer and get 1 sort of Hail Mary round of attacks in, which actually odds on should kill him. They're rolling they get 1 attack each. There's 3 of them, and they hit on 2+. I rolled 2 1s. And the other one, had it been a 6, would have caused 2 mortal wounds, which would have killed him, but it wasn't.
he has to, yeah.
Cause you don't get saved again.
No, I don't.
Against mortal wounds.
No, it was whether or not you had to hit to then do the mortal wounds, but no, you're right. It just had to be a 6 to hit, yeah.
And if they get through, they do 2 damage. So the one that hit, he was on a 3+ to wound, and it rolled a 2. So yeah,
it was just flat unlucky.
It was just
like, I think if you'd not gotten the mortal wound, so obviously the mortal wound will do it. That's a 6, so that is what it is. Luckily, that Chaos Sorcerer had been casting his own buff on himself for the rest of the game because he had nothing to do with the Sun in the Corner.
Yeah.
So he was in a reasonable place because he was going to re-roll 1s. He had 3 wounds left. He was re-rolling all 1s to save, and I had that 6 in the Deathly Dice pool, ready to guarantee 1 of them.
That's true.
So I felt like that shot, like,
they're 2 damage.
I think it swung way towards a whiff for you. I was still kind of like poised, ready to
ready to expect it.
Yeah, ready to try and protect him.
They're 2 damage as well. They're on paper really good hero killers. But there are a lot of points for not a lot of attacks. And if that's like a point of weakness, though, that roll of 3 dice, like if that doesn't come off, then they're a waste of points really. Cause even if you get them in the right position, they've got to do well really.
It was a really cool moment though.
It was rad. It looked awesome.
And I think there's an element of like, it felt like a Hail Mary. Like it wasn't like
I did need a lot of dice to make it happen. I needed a 3+ from the Relictor to cast the Lightning Chariot in the first place, and then I needed the hit. So that it was a gamble completely. It was the only thing I could do to affect the game really in its closing stages. If I had managed to take it off, it would have been a pretty lucky victory really, given that you deserve to win completely after taking out the Formies and the Heraldor and like getting up that big points advantage at the start. And hiding your stuff, which like you shouldn't be ashamed to do against the.
I think I've gotten over my sense of shame.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like actually play like fucking Zinch
demons.
Like,
definitely. Like they're the bad guys, and also just doing stuff sensibly makes the game more interesting. Like it's more challenging to play someone who's actually hiding stuff.
Yeah, I think as well. Like to the extent that obviously you've encountered some rules things that you hadn't encountered before. I don't think you've encountered me not playing like an idiot before either, which might have been
It was still close.
Yeah, it was still close. So. I think you managed to get some shots off at the Herald as well.
I did, got a couple of shots.
But I managed to commit my 6 from the Destiny Dice pool to save him.
That was a real gamble. Like the odds on that were pretty low, but I thought, you never know. Rolled a bunch of 6s like I did earlier for the full game.
And that was game.
That was game. It was really, really close actually. It was really interesting. I felt like, I built a bad army and it was so immobile that I didn't feel like I was doing very much for a lot of it because like it couldn't shoot that for 1 turn, couldn't really move very much. The stuff that could move got zapped by that storm as well. So, it felt like I was a bit placid and didn't take the right things. I prefer more dynamic armies. So in future I'll build better armies based on that experience, which is cool.
Yeah. And I think this has taught me that like, I want to play in a more evasive way. I think in a sort of like, lead you into a trap kind of way rather than a kind of I think I've been playing a little bit like a corn player for a while, right? Like charging and hoping for the best, and that's not necessarily how each demon wins a game. So I do want to make sure that like like it's the X-Wing player in me, but I never want to hide mechanics. And I understand, I completely get what you're saying, that like listing out every ability you've got is not the same as explaining or expressing the reality of what it can do. And it's a tricky line there. It's a genuinely hard line to draw. Because if I say to you, hey, so I've put all of these stuff on Thaumaturge, and in aggregate, I think this might be my way of getting enough damage to kill your Fulminators, then that will change the fabric of the game.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna, but is that legit? Is it not legit? It's certainly never going to work again. So, you know what I mean? There's a sort of...
Yeah, and I mean, I should have worked it out really. But it was just like there's so many spells and just kind of rapid fire going through all of them. Yeah. It's like, that could buff that, +1 to that, +1 to this, +1 to that, reroll the 1s to this. It's just like, you're not going to know. You're not going to think, oh, what if you put all of that on Thaumaturge? Should have thought about it. That's the thing. But that's the lesson,
and next time as well, right? It feels like this is maybe, to close, like, as a closing thought, like, one of the nice things I think about the fact that A, this is a story, and B, it's an ongoing learning the game thing between you and I, at least when it comes to these 2 armies, is that this isn't, I got dumpstered at a tournament by someone I'll never play again and something I'll never see again.
No, that's true.
Like the time that I played against the Skaven with some Warp Lightning Cannons and I lost a third of my army on the first turn on things I didn't even have a chance to. Yeah, and it's just like, oh well, this is over. Like, it's like, whoop, 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 whoop,
I hate armies that do that.
Like that stuff happens. This felt like, okay, this was, I have gone back to my book, I've read it again, and I've like, how do I stop this thing that has flattened me, you know? So this was a minor victory for me in the end. It was the second game of AOS I have ever won. And it was the first one that I think I won because I thought about it ahead of time and didn't just get lucky.
Yeah.
So, although obviously you do get, you know, I think the luck shakes out, but yeah, so.
It does shake out.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. I look forward to the revenge where that never is allowed to happen again.
No, it's good. And it's going to be really interesting to build new stuff as well, because, that's going to change the way the synergies work. I think like every time you add something new to the army, I will never be able to understand what it might do. That's the thing about fighting as each army, or a really elite, complex army. It's like if I was fighting Stormcast and I put down some Vanguard Hunters, I read out their stat line and their special things. I'm pretty sure like it's easy for the opponent to get a grasp on it.
Yeah.
If some Skyfires come in, like anything could happen. they could be the
to some extent.
amazing.
I think there are things about like there are definitely things that I get surprised by. Like, you know, like discovering that these on 6s are mortal wounds, and that's, you know, scuppered something I was playing. Like, I do think it goes both ways. I agree that it's not 100% even, because like we said at the beginning of this bit, like a lot of my army is in its special rules, not in its stat lines.
Yeah.
And so that's naturally a little bit more opaque. But at the same time, I haven't memorized all your stat lines. Like, I'm sitting there a lot of the time going like, I assume this is amazing.
Right.
And sometimes they don't. Like, sometimes they do actually crack under pressure, and I just haven't exploited it enough or weighted the maths enough in my brain to figure out how much pressure I need to apply. And that's, you know, it is a learning experience.
Yeah, for sure. But that's Inch as well. That's how that army is 100% supposed to work.
Sometimes the screamers fly up, do nothing,
Yeah,
regenerate one of their number, and fly away again.
Bye. Yeah. So like the Zinch having hidden potential and kind of is exactly how that army's supposed to work. So it's totally themey.
Yeah, and also it's nice that we can keep telling the story of this sort of expedition, which is now in some trouble, right? Like, you know,
definitely.
Like, I think the next battle we play in that series, and hopefully we will, has become more interesting for the fact that we're now 1-1 in this series, rather than it being like, and then everything was fine again.
I should fend off like an onslaught. It should be like because we've established the beachhead and that's under threat now, because the Stormcast advance has been blunted, as you said. So a kind of counterattack from the Zinch, in which Stormcast somehow perhaps defending a location. That might work well.
Next step.
Yeah, right.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna paint something new.
Me too.
Might paint my Castellant. He's one of the first. He's just a solid hero. He just
With a good dog.
He's got a lovely dog, and he's good with retributors. I'm
going to paint some kind of demon hero who might arrive at an hour of need to cause some real problems.
Fantastic. Oh, that means I might be able to.
You might get the ultimate cavalry charge, like the ultimate from space to turn the tide.
I've had that guy painted for ages. I'm really excited to use him.
Yeah.
Exciting times in the realm of.
And I'm going to paint the rest of that battle board so we can do a 6x4.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We'd do 2,000 points perhaps.
Yeah.
Might be able to stretch it. It's going to be rad.
That's really exciting.
Good games. Content must flow.
I was about to say, like, corn cares not from whence the content flows. Content.
No,
Content.
Content, yeah.
Yeah, stick with that.
Yeah, good.
Speaking of content, Tom.
Yes.
Not to make this jump any more obvious. Should we do some questions from our valued listeners?
Let's do it.
If this sounds like a weird tonal shift from the thing you've just heard, a more sober discussion about a series of battles that we've played and the ways that made us feel, then that's because not only have we taken a break, we've taken a break of about 5 hours.
We've recorded a whole separate content.
Whole separate set of
It's really hot in it.
prime
now.
content in that time for returning to this subject, just you and me now, Tom. It's real warm and we've had a few beers. And so if this is a silly question section, please do forgive us in advance. But nonetheless, we've got loads of questions. Very grateful for them.
Yes.
So it's time to crack on.
See how we do
with our question section. That's definitely what's happening now. I'm not stalling for time. I'm just rotating towards the questions. I found the browser window they're in. Good news, everybody. Pete, also Vienna from Discord, writes, "Hello, tiny paintbrush wielders. Last month I played a game of AOS which made me very excited to paint more of my magic rock-quaffing Ratman than a game of 40k. And then a game of 40k using the Dark Imperium box set that made me very excited to paint my Death Guard. soon after I finally settled on a colour scheme for my Dark Eldar vehicles, so naturally I was very excited to paint them. How do you keep working on the same army? I seem to flit about like a Zinchi tentacle, painting the latest thing that's run across my brain. Yours indecisively, Fienia/Pete.
Yeah, that's, I understand the urge to kind of, because the armies have such defined aesthetics and such defined, techniques associated with with their armor specifically. So the techniques you'd apply to Primaris armor, which is full of great big open spaces, less kind of filigree, that, that just painting that feels very different to going into the Death Guard. That's why the Dark Imperium box is so cool in many ways, because it gives you all of those different textures in one box.
Yeah. Smooth things, gribbly things, flat things.
And I'm really excited about painting up some Skitarii, because they're a different aesthetic again from anything I've painted. So it's almost like it gives you that variation, like taking a break from batch painting one type of aesthetic and moving into a different one. It's actually like a tactile difference in just how you're using your paintbrush and how you're applying your paints.
I found as well that, I think, again, I might be paraphrasing you, but it's always worth indulging in actually, no, I'm not. It's a completely different context. I'm paraphrasing Tom Francis for an episode of The Crate and Crowbar when we had the Tokyo 42 guys on. And they were talking about flitting between ideas in dev. Like suddenly just disappearing off to work on a completely unrelated feature when you know you should technically be doing a specific thing in a video game. And I think the same applies to painting to an extent. I almost made this comparison on that pod, but I remember I stepped back from it because it was like, my painting tiny plastic men is not the same as developing a video game we've been doing for 3 years.
Indeed.
Except, I think there's a similar lesson, which is that as long as you're doing something towards a project that you care at least somewhat about, which is going to be almost all of them, then you're not wasting time. Like, you're not on a schedule. Yeah, if you've got a tournament to prepare for, maybe you need to plan it out a little bit better, be more disciplined. But if you're doing something, then you're going to eventually get the collection of miniatures that you have in your mind's eye, as long as you're doing something towards that. And I found that I've never regretted, if I have a whim between two projects, if I finish one project and then I'm like, I want to do this. Like the Harlequins are a good example of that, even if they took up a big chunk of time. Or the two Nurgle characters I did just to kind of block out, just do something else. Hypothetically, would I have finished, for say, my Thousand Suns earlier had I not done them? Definitely. Do I regret now having those extra models that I did? Absolutely not. Like, just, if your urge was to, bin half your models suddenly, then that would be a destructive urge. I think as long as you're just, even if you're flitting between projects, if you're getting something done, then you're progressing. It's just inefficient. And that's not a problem if it keeps you enthusiastic and happy in the project.
I've found that I've got almost too many boxes of things now, so I'm not going to buy any one for a while because I get a kind of paralysis now where I go, I want to do some painting, but I honestly don't know. Should I start the Skitarii? Should I start the Primaris? Okay, I can't do the Primaris because I need a colour scheme. Like, there's a lot of kind of baggage around. Like, there's obviously so much baggage in the way now, where if I had bought my one box of models for the month and it's the only box I had, I would devote myself to that and kind of be focused on it and do it. There is a kind of paralysis to it, I think.
I think some purchasing discipline helps a bunch and finishing things. Like, I was really pleased to get the Changeling done in a single couple of days after buying it.
That feels like the best return on investment because, first of all, it's a great model, and also it had such a cool rules effect on the games that we played. Yeah, and it's just and it introduced something new to our kind of the Stormcast Siege ongoing feud with. Yeah,
I kind of wish I'd done that with I think this is one of the problems with army drops or getting excited around a big release. Like at the moment, say you're a Space Marine player and the Primaris stuff's all coming out and you might be tempted to be like, oh hey, I just got a payday or it's my birthday or whatever it is. I'm going to drop 200 quid and get a big pile of stuff. That's pretty much exactly what I did when Siege got its big wave with all the books and the boxes and stuff that I'm still working through. But the problem with that is you end up with an instant backlog. Whereas coming to it 6 months after the fact, picking up one model in the Changeling, even though I have a backlog, and just doing it was super satisfying. Yeah. So I think, one way is just purchasing discipline, but the other half of it is if you're getting through stuff, I wouldn't fret so much. The main thing is keeping your enthusiasm.
Yeah, as long as you're enjoying it. It's all good.
Absolutely. Our next question comes from Kingsley, who writes, Dear boxed game and vast expensive hobby. Great pod, blah, blah, blah. Got me back into the hobby, blah, blah, blah. Question. To the point. Returning to the hobby after about 9 years, one of the biggest changes seems to be the re-emergence of boxed games from GW. I don't really have the time to commit to building a full-size 40k AOS army, so the prospect of picking up a box with everything needed to play and splitting it with a friend sounds quite appealing. The question is which game to choose. From a miniatures point of view, Silver Tower looks more diverse, but I don't really know about the mechanics of the game. From your battle reports, Burning of Prospero sounds like a really interesting set of scenarios, but I'm not sure how I feel about having more Space Marines in my life. Which of these, or any of the other box games, do you think would make the best entry point? Thanks for reading, everybody. Kingsley. And she has a nice footnote, which is, it really is a great pod. I don't think I'd have the patience to understand the new ranges of models or the fact that everything has a pig Latin name now without the encouragement of your enthusiastic podding. To be fair, they always had pig Latin names.
Did, yeah. They used to be much sillier in fairness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question about the box games, because we've talked before about how they're simultaneously great entry points, but also like really elite in hobby terms.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the Prospero box is much, much easier to paint than the... Really?
It took me 6 months.
Yeah, but you invented like a mad way of doing red. That meant you invented, you built your own cage. But in that one, they are just Space Marines. You can paint them red and they'll be fine. But obviously I love the way you've done them. They look awesome. But that's like,
you're right. No, I did.
I
did. Yeah, that was dumb.
No, so, I mean, that was right.
No, so actually, I guess the reason I made a stupid noise and shook my head is because I actually I think those are tricky models structurally. Like, I think Space Marines are not actually the bastion of easy to paint that people sometimes think they are. Like, things like backpacks and shoulder pads that cover big parts of the arms, guns held across the chest. Like, easy to paint is Stormcast, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, or at least there's an interesting illustrative difference between those two things. Like, Stormcast, open pose, no backpack. Some of them have capes, but that's something you can work around. There are difficult to paint Stormcast. I'm not saying universally.
But I think but Zangor, little gribbly rats, tiny goblin models.
Yeah,
like,
okay, Silver Tower.
That's what I was comparing the box games.
Yeah. Yes, okay, so, yes, if the comparison is those two, then absolutely.
No, I wasn't comparing to starters. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, I thought we were, I think in terms of, I honestly think probably one of the new 40k boxes, because I know they come with like a custom set of scenarios and like designed to be played with those miniatures.
Yeah.
Like, as we said at the beginning of this episode, that's a much cheaper entry point, so it's a little bit less risk. Like, both Prospero and Silver Tower are 100 boxes with 50 plus miniatures in them that will take you months to paint.
Yeah.
And obviously, you don't have to care about, and if you don't care about painting, or you want to take that a little bit easier, the fact that the new starter boxes are push fit miniatures on colored plastic gets you into it really quickly.
Yeah. Plus, I think the Dark Imperium box is great because, the supposedly like elite army, the hard to paint army, which is the Nurgle one, looks good with just a wash over some flesh colors. Like, genuinely, if you really want to go to town on those details, then you can. But there is a basic application of paints that will get you a cool effect with one of those Death Guard models for sure. But I'm not sure that's true of the Silver Tower box, for example.
It really isn't.
Yeah, it just won't work.
There's nothing in that box that just takes a wash. Like, it's kind of amazing how many different
it's an amazing box.
Even the little goblins, like the way their poses work, because they're all spiders. They've got a million legs, and they're in like a crouched, like quadrupedal, octopedal pose with fucking webs dangling off them. Like,
they're really hard to paint.
Yeah.
I'd
like trial by fire if you think you might figure it out.
Yeah, I'd like to try the Gore Chosen box, which is a box of 4 Khorne heroes, which is just a kind of arena mode where they go in and fight, and it's just a game that takes like half an hour, 45 minutes.
Regular Crit and Crowbar pod friend Alex has bought Gore Chosen.
Oh, really?
For some reason. So
you get some fantastic hero models in there. And the Khorne heroes are brilliant, even though I'm not like a big fan of the way Khorne looks generally. Like, their heroes are fantastic.
Yeah.
And you get 4 really great independent Khorne hero models that are fun to paint. But also, I think you can probably, like, there's a lot of filigree stuff on them, but if you paint them red and wash them and pick out some flesh, they'll look
Khorne takes a little bit more, takes a more, like a roughshod approach a bit better than Tzeentch does, because Tzeentch is more about the kind of the elegant, weird, curving gradients and lines. And
there's something really pristine about Tzeentch that is supposed to be like really clean and beautiful.
Yeah, it's supposed to be weird to look at, but like Slanesh, like it feels like there's like Khorne and Nurgle are the relatively easy to paint Chaos
Yeah,
and
'cause, like,
Slanesh and
yeah.
Tzeentch are the harder two.
Because Khorne stuff is supposed to be super battered, and they don't really care about the way they look.
Covered in blood,
Covered in
like,
blood
yeah.
and stuff. And dry brushes are brilliant for them because dry brush over the metal looks great. Get some, brass and dark red, lovely colours, looks good. And it's a simple rule set. It's easy to pick up and play with a few friends around a table. Though we've not played it, so I can't fully vouch for how good it is.
I think in terms of things we have played, my choice would be either the 25 or 50 quid new Warhammer starter sets, 40k sort of sets, because we can vouch for the rules.
Yeah.
And I think that's a meaningfully diverse set of things. It's not like a standalone game like Prospero is, but it's a way into the bigger thing if that's what you want, but you don't have to necessarily. Because I feel like with those 100 quid boxes, there comes some kind of commitment. 100 quid on Silver Tower, if I was judging that purely on the amount that we played of actual Silver Tower, it might not have ended up feeling worth it, because it's obviously hard to arrange those kinds of things. Yeah. But in terms of getting me back into the hobby and giving me the core of a new army and enthusiasm for a particular side of that fiction, absolutely worth it, if you know what I mean. So
it's interesting though, because because Prospero gave you the 1,000 Suns force that you fought with me today. In 8th.
That's true. Yeah.
So and you don't really get that from the Silver Tower box in the same way. You get a lot of disparate heroes and cool little units.
Yeah, I think when Silver Tower came out, it felt more like it was about to be the sort of core set for an army than it actually is. Yeah, and that's due to some, not unfortunate, but the balance of forces you get in Silver Tower, obviously from a hero point of view, you're getting a couple of individual hero models, and they're all from different factions within Order and Chaos. So, you're not going to get a force there necessarily. And the villains also are split across Destruction and Chaos, basically. So, again, not an army there. And even all of the Tzeentch stuff in that box doesn't have the right set of gear to form currently kind of standard legal units for specifically Acolytes and Zangor.
Yeah.
You get the Gaunt Summoner model and you get the Thaumaturge, which are both perfectly valid. And I think it's the only way to get the Summoner with Familiars, which is a specific version of that character. But, Silver Tower is not a good pick from my first army basis. Whereas I can see that, Prospero is at least into 30k. And then if you want to fudge it a bit, 40k. Although you do have to fudge it a bit. And, but yeah, again, it depends what your kind of long-term goal is, I think. But
yeah.
But nonetheless. Our next question comes from Alexander Radovich, who writes, how long before we get a Hipster Hammer versus Miniatures Monthly battle report?
That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. And actually, probably not out of the question. So Hipster Hammer, if you're not aware, is a Warhammer blog run by Kieran Gillen and Matt Sherritt. Some pretty cool, they've both written some pretty cool things for that, and they do battle reports and things, sort of infrequent. But both are friends. I was at Matt's wedding not too long ago. And Matt and I, as in Matt of Hipster Hammer and I, are going to that event in Cardiff that I keep talking about. I'm going to with Matt, and I'm actually part of the sort of informally part of the Hipster Hammer team for an event in Cambridge in October, I think. So I'm definitely going to be playing a bunch with them. And I think it's a short step from there to a 2-on-2 at some point.
Yeah, friendly contest.
Indeed.
That'd be great.
Ideally. It would probably actually end up 2-on-2, but not in the even division, because Kieran's a Chaos player and Matt is an Order player. Oh, right. So it would make quite a lot more sense to do.
I'd team with Matt.
Yeah.
Bring my Stormcast party.
His Wanderers.
And he's got Wanderers.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And Kieran's kind of Khorne and Skaven and my Tzeentch. That would be the way around to do it.
I really want to get some Wanderers, because they're basically what the Wood Elves have become in AOS incarnation, and Wood Elves were my dudes back in the day. Yeah. And I really miss them in a lot of ways, actually. Thinking about liking fluid armies and kind of responsive armies. Yeah. And it was an amazing range when I used to play the Wood Elf range, because it had dryads, but also had rank units with your archers, and it also had war dancers who were really, really exciting miniatures, really well posed, considering they were metal and the technology available at the time. Really great models, that with lots of opportunity for freehand, lots of tattoos. Their whole thing was that they were just tripped out, mad dancing warriors who could vault over units or just to hypnotize them with their sweet moves on
Yeah,
the
also
dance floor.
fantasy harlequins.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I really miss that stuff in AOS actually.
I just realised something.
What?
Harlequins are the wood elves of 40k.
Hard to paint, fast,
Yeah. Come out of nowhere.
good at range.
But neither dark elves nor high elves. Somewhere in the middle between the two of them.
GW secrets revealed.
Shit. That doesn't hold up beyond a certain point.
No,
But I said it
not
anyway.
at all. Yeah, to an extent. The Wanderers have some cool rules, but their pointing is a bit mad. And they have some amazing units as well. They have like these wild riders riding stags that are sort of prancing, really beautiful models. And I'd love to collect an army of them. I just don't think their rules are interesting enough or necessarily good enough to justify.
Yeah.
But I might plug some in. I mean, I'll plug some into my Swordcast army with my
It'd be
Dryads.
so cool to see.
Yeah, it'd be lovely actually.
But yeah, so not miles out of the question, to be honest.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
doing some kind of cool crossover thing. Just nice to have people around to play Warhammer. Now that I've got a terrain board, actually, it feels like I want to do Warhammer parties.
Yeah.
Like, just get people over for a weekend, camp in the
it's gonna be
garden,
arranged.
and play Warhammer on a
Get you
huge
over.
table.
My girlfriend knows someone at work who is into it and really wants to play, so we should team up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do a
The
big...
more the better. Join us.
Indeed, yeah. Our next question comes from Russell, who writes, Hi Chris and Tom, I work in a school as a science technician and I'm setting up a Warhammer club in the new academic year. I'm loving 8th edition 40k and the launch of a new simpler edition seems like a good time to introduce a fresh blood to the hobby. As in STEM subjects, I'm aware of the lack of female uptake, but I'm struggling to come up with ways to address the issue. It feels like GW's marketing, existing stereotypes, and the setting itself are working against me. What are your thoughts on this? Just the nature of the hobby or something we can do more on? Love the pod and seeing your painting progress photos, Russell. Yeah, it feels like I'm not sure who pointed this out when I saw this online, but it seems like it was something that I think came up with GW during the sessions at Warhammer Fest, where they said that it's something they wanted to address, but because they're, as in having a more diverse universe and having more diverse forces and so on. But because their pipeline is so long, like often the models we're receiving now were conceived and designed 2 or 3 years ago. Sort of ideas that people were like, yeah, let's commit to this in 2015. We'll probably won't see till next year, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that that's an excuse necessarily, but it feels like the more time that passes, the better this is going to get. I think sort of seeing some parts of that around the fringe of the hobby, like the fact that the Stormcast fiction, well, the fiction includes female Stormcast, and now the game is getting around to it through Shadespire is progress.
Yeah, the latest book that has just come out called Plague Garden has loads of female Stormcast characters and stuff. So they're really pushing that into fiction and actually committing to it now.
It feels like they're pushing it in all of the places that aren't actual models kits that take the years to commit, which is the thing they need to commit to, I think. Like, it's a similar, like, I'd like to, like, there's precedent going a long way back in 40k fiction for female Imperial Guard. Like, Imperial Guard does not discriminate at all. It's just bodies for the infinite war grinder as far as anyone's concerned, which is grim, but nonetheless. But obviously, like, the kits are really slow to pick that up. Like, it always jumps out to me. There's the Warhammer 40k Space Marine video game, which I finally played on your recommendation, Tom.
Right.
Like, the first, like, guards commander you meet in that is is a woman, and she's like, you know, one of the first sort of non-Space Marine human voices in the story, and that's great. And actually the books do that a lot, but it makes it more obvious to me that those models don't exist, if you know what I mean. Like, the Horus Heresy books often seem to, like, fill their civilian roles with female characters because the fiction is being constructed in a way where there are no female Space Marines. So, like, when the sort of you see the remembrances and all of the humans that are attached to the Space Marines, like, lots of the most important characters are women, because that seems to be the only way those authors could find to get them into the fiction. And that's kind of a shit thing that's been slow to materialize in the game. Like the moving the Sisters of Silence out of 30k back lore and into the active game as a sort of fleshed out faction is progress.
Yeah.
Sisters of Battle as a full faction would be progress. But again, it's it's a tricky thing.
I think, I mean, this is just like a huge ship that turns very slowly, basically. Like, it would help if GW had those models, and I'm sure that they're in the pipe somewhere, and that they came out and kind of turned the universe to more of a inclusive place. But in a 40k way, right? Everyone's still dying horribly, and everyone's
And we talked about this a little bit last week. Like the 40k setting is horrible. Its grimness only makes sense in a kind of with a very sort of specific sort of cynicism in mind. Like, you know what I mean? It's an extremely pessimistic view of what the future could be in a way that amplifies like every form of awful prejudice and persecution and hardship you can imagine all at once for the purpose of horror. Basically, it's a horror setting.
Yeah.
40k ultimately, despite the kind of, there's always a sort of lurking unhappiness under every victory in that setting. And it's, I think they absolutely can and should do more to rationalize that with its diversity issue. It is a tricky one because it's an explicitly like xenophobic, sexist universe.
Yeah.
And that is not a pleasant thing to spend time in. And I think 40k actually has a sort of an interesting and unreconciled relationship with that in some ways. Like the game sort of half wants to celebrate the glories of the Imperium and what it means to be a proud Space Marine warrior, and also has tons of fiction about how fucking awful that is.
Yeah.
That is very knowing about how awful that is. And it's an interesting, like, it actually never reconciles those two things. It's one of the things I think I probably find fascinating about it, but from a kind of like, what is the thing I would contrast it with is something like, for example, the Marvel Universe, which I think absolutely benefits from everything it has done to become a sort of a more inclusive and representative space, because it is supposed to be a sort of, to a greater or lesser extent, a sort of a utopian fiction where superheroes are around to help everybody, and those superheroes need to represent everybody. Warhammer 40,000 is explicitly a fucking terrible place you'd never, ever, ever want to live.
Yeah, yeah.
But it might be that sort of maintaining that while also respecting its diversity issues more might be making it less a good place. You know what I mean? Just like accepting that this is a horror setting. And this is the worst thing that could happen to humanity, basically. And there are no glories in it. And there are no, like, great Space Marine heroes. There's just different tiers of awful, like, imperialist, fascist war machine grinding humanity to dust forever.
Yeah. Cheery thought.
Yeah.
But I think the problem goes way beyond Games Workshop and anything they do.
True.
I think that the problem described in the question actually is more about wider cultural perceptions of wargaming as a community, or, that type of board gaming as a community, which is very hard to shift or change. And maybe it does come from the source material eventually. Maybe a shift in the models and a shift in, the setting will in a decade or so change things, but you can't manufacture these things.
And it's also not only difficult but wrong to presume that changing one thing or changing, one approach to the game or the setting or the hobby in general will suddenly draw in a new audience, because everyone wants different things from it. It feels like offering more experiences with the same set of stuff will bring in more people generally. So I think I wouldn't say that the push towards this sort of like form of open play or narrative play and things like that that's happening. The thing typified by Age of Sigmar is like moving away from the super technical wargaming side of things towards more of a kind of hobby, storytelling, sort of creative form of play. I don't think that is specifically useful as a tool to bring more women into the hobby. I think it is specifically useful as a tool to bring more people into the hobby. I think it's what's brought me back into the hobby. Absolutely. Like, I'm not really interested in the, what I previously would have thought was like quite a, an intimidating community full of people who are likely to be very pedantic about rules and that kind of thing is opened up as a sort of creative thing. And accessibility in that regard, I think, has benefits across the board, not just in terms of any given form of diversity, but just diversity in general, like in terms of getting more people into it. So I would push the narrative aspect, but not with the specific eye to bringing more women into the hobby, just with a view to bringing more people.
Yeah, for sure.
Next question comes from Simon, who writes, "Hello, Chris and Tom. Questions for the questions god," and 4 exclamation marks. "I was busy filing away mold lines on my Plague Marines when a couple of thoughts occurred. Does fun exist in 40k lore, or is it heresy? Are citizens allowed to play football, or is worshipping the Emperor and making munitions all the fun they ever need? My other thought was when I noticed the Lord of Contagion has his stomach sack pinned to his armour. Did he trip over his own entrails one too many times, or is it for aesthetics? Here, lads, check out my necrosis." And so on to my question. What's your favourite, most absurd detail you've seen on a model? Thanks for all the wonderful podding you guys have done over the years, and shout out to the Discord community for all the tips, encouragement, and just being nice people. Simon Curley on Discord.
Yep, always go push our lovely Discord community.
You should.
It's actually our busiest chat room, probably.
More table talk, probably.
For sure. People are changing tips, showing, posting work in progress pics, talking about what to buy next, what they think of the Reavers. Lots of split opinions there, as we talked about earlier. There's a really, really awesome community of cool people.
I suspect there's no fun in Warhammer, really. There's not an ambiguous fun. Like, the closest you might get something like Blood Bowl was to the original Warhammer world.
Right.
But even that is like, it's a sport where people get murdered.
Yeah, I expect there's a lot of blood sport in the, in hive cities and that kind of thing. There's lots of fight clubs, lots of that kind of thing. Where, some people might take some fleeting entertainment out of it, but ultimately it's people inflicting pain upon each other. That seems like a very
I feel like you can't really understand where any of the Games Workshop was going without like kind of getting 2000 AD, where like everything is terrible.
Right.
Like, to continue from the last question to an extent.
Yes.
No, everything is terrible.
Really awful.
Yeah.
The sort of glimmers of fun that you get from the books, or I've gotten from the book so far, is like Space Marines fighting one another in like sparring cages, which are these like bulletproof.
But don't they often like
silos.
Get a bit frustrated and just rip the arms off some servitors or
but
something?
That's the fun they get, right? It's mostly actually when they challenge people from, so in the Horus Heresy especially, they love challenging people from other chapters, and they'll go into the dueling chamber, and it's the thrill of battle that actually excites them. And they have this fleeting sort of, 5-minute bout, incredible skill on show, and one of them bests the other. And that's the pleasure they get. And then occasionally in the middle of like a dreadful scenario on some alien planet where, bugs with, arms that can slice through power armor like butter, one of them will think, oh, this is a good fight. And that's their 3 seconds of pleasure for their entire lifetime.
I was thinking about it. There's a bit in Flight of the Eisenstein where 2 Death Guard, pre-corruption Death Guard, are playing chess. And they're all kind of getting into it. And it's like, oh, the young rookies beat the old wolf, and this kind of thing. And then literally 20 minutes later, that old rookie or the young rookie is being crushed inside his armor due to the chaos-enhanced screaming of an unfathomable witch woman as his entrails and gore is splattered over the face of someone he beat at chess only 2 hours earlier. And that person looks at him and goes, he's never playing chess again.
And that's what
and it's like, and then it's sort of like a grim smirk, like, well, I didn't get crushed. The very, very good announcement CGI trailer for Dawn of War 3, the video game, which just ends with a Space Marine smiling as he's crushed by a chainsword bigger than a house.
Yes.
That's fun.
He closes his eyes and smiles because glory of death in the service to the Emperor is the only pleasure that you can expect as a human in the Imperium.
Yeah.
Which is why you join Chaos.
Exactly. And even that's not really fun.
Not great.
No.
Maybe Slanesh, though.
Not really.
No.
No. Because it's like, you might go...
Fun, but too much.
Yeah, it's too much fun.
Too much fun. Therefore, because tentacles.
Yeah, exactly. I've turned into a big deer snake thing with a long snoot.
Yeah, those horses are weird.
Them horses are weird.
Get the weirdest chariot in the whole game... start collecting box for Slanesh in AOS.
That thing, actually, that thing might be more work than the...
Looks like it.
Flaming Chariot. There's 4 different cavalry units attached to a
Why are there
mad
so many
snake
horses?
person.
It's so bad. Yeah.
The snoot horses. I forgot what they're actually called.
Yeah.
Seekers.
Mm.
It's not what they're seeking. Good time.
But at least they're striving for fun. At least they're kind of trying to.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tzeentch
enjoy
represents
it.
hope, but the hope is like, I hope I don't have to make bullets forever and then inevitably be killed when one explodes.
Well, yeah.
And then you get to turn into feathers. Congratulations. It's a shit place to live.
It's bad. It's bad.
The other part of this question was, what's the favourite / most absurd detail you've seen on a model? Which is a
That's
really good question.
Yeah.
Needs a little bit more thought, maybe.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall, actually. I'm trying to recall everything I've painted.
Yeah. There's,
once.
one of my favourite details on a model, and it's really subtle, is there's a lot of this, and there's a lot of Tzeentch stuff. A lot of, whoever does a lot of the Tzeentch miniatures, or the team that does the Tzeentch miniatures, they're brilliant at getting the symbology of Tzeentch into the models in cool ways. So a really obvious example is on the 30k Ahriman's right shin pad. All of his armor is kind of like covered in these kind of like Prospero runes, like sort of Thousand Suns runes and sigils and things. And his right shin pad, just one of them is the Tzeentch symbol. And it's just one among many. And it's this great little detail that says, this person is engraving significant symbols in his on him, in his armor and kind of on his person. And he has no idea what that one actually means yet.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's almost like a little creeping warning.
Yeah, that's nice.
When I painted my arm and I have it glowing, it's the only symbol on his armor that's glowing. And it's just the one that's about to like kick in. There's also like, I noticed this is a mad thing. The changeling, when I did the model this week, it's pulling this fireball into being with three of its arms. And the way it's pulling it, it's pulled it into the Tzeentch symbol. Like it's
Oh, nice.
like it's cause the Tzeentch symbol is sort of like a kind of curving bee with like a kind of, it's almost like a ball with a flame coming out of the top of it.
Yeah,
Which I called back from earlier. So those are really cool little things you pick up on and go, oh shit, that's just that little extra level of,
Yeah, this makes me think of the Relictor's scepter, which is actually just like as some people hold up banners in combat, but the Lord Relictor has like a reliquary with an actual skeleton of someone holding a broadsword as though they're interred in death. And he just carries that around with him. But the skeleton is the size of a normal human. It's not Stormcast sized. So it's almost, it kind of implies a greater story to the Lord Relictor, and that this could have been a person they knew in life or something, or that came to mean something to them, not just simply, just a body he found, you know?
Yeah.
And that, especially the way that the skeleton is holding the broadsword, which is very kind of, ancient burial style. Like, it feels like he's carrying around a body from the world that was, or from a different era, whenever he was reforged from. And it implies a lot about the character and kind of gives you hooks to create your own stories for that Relictor, which, that's a great model.
Yeah, that's super cool. Our next question comes from Tom Hatfield. Good friend of both of ours. Former flatmate of both of ours.
Hello, Tom.
Hi, Tom. Hey guys, love the podcast. Just wanted to ask a simple setup that I'm sure will not lead to a complex lore discussion. You've talked about your favourite Space Marine chapters and Chaos Gods, but who are your favourite Xenos?
That's a good question, Tom.
That's a good question.
The Tower, really interesting.
Yeah.
They're as close as at a glance, as close as you might come to some sort of good guy, or not really.
Well, this is an interesting thing. When they were conceived as like, what if there were good guys in 40k?
Right.
But they were like thousands of years behind everybody else. So their backstory is that, if you're not aware, that the Tau were discovered by the Imperium during the Great Crusade, so 10,000 years ago, as of Warhammer 40,000. And they were basically about the same technological level as we are now. They were like approaching their space age, like starting to make a kind of go of it. And they were determined to be not, you couldn't bring them to compliance. They were too advanced to be left alone. So they were signaled for exterminatus, just wipe them out. However, then a huge warp storm hid their homeworld from the Imperium, and then the heresy kicked off, and so the Imperium left them alone. And then 10,000 years later, they emerged as one of the most technologically advanced races in the galaxy because they've progressed for 10,000 years without the hyper-religious, crazy strictures of the Imperium. And initially, there was a sort of an ambiguous kind of like, we're the good guys, but we're completely out of our depth sort of sense to them. And then a little bit later, there was a desire, I think, to sort of grimdark them a little bit.
Yeah.
So parts of their rigid caste system in their society became a bigger thing, and their sort of, like monomaniacal sense of the greater good that governs not only how they treat their own people, but the kind of races that they implicitly subjugate.
Yeah. They
became a thing.
They become their own version of the Imperium, really, because, when the Imperium encounters alien races, they just kill them. But when the Tau encounter them, they try and subsume them, basically. They try and just eat them culturally in a way that's more insidious and horrible in its own way.
Yeah, it's a toss-up, which is worse.
Yeah, so they, for example, they might encounter an alien species and then control its breeding with advanced viruses, in order to persuade them to join, and then they would hold them in a semi-enslavement situation, like that entire species, just to use them for combat purposes. So they're like fiercely utilitarian for that. They only care about the outcome. And they sort of like their values. Are they better than the Imperium? Like, is it better to be enslaved or just to die to an exterminatus attack? You know, that's the question they pose.
Yeah, that's pure 40k thinking. Then. Like,
correct.
Which of these two fucking terrible apocalypse scenarios would you prefer? Yeah, like I think Tau designs stand out really nicely. I think so actually it occurs to me our next question, which is from Andre, is would either of you ever consider collecting one of the alien armies? If so, which one would you pick? Which it feels like we can fall into this discussion both on the lore side and also on the collecting side.
Yeah, sure.
Tau models are great. Really like them. The sort of clean lines and sort of like anime inspired robots and things are super cool.
That kind of Gundam influence.
Yeah, I like the Tyranids as well. Like they seem like they'd be fun to...
They're really fun to paint.
Similar kind of gribbly, likes a wash kind of thing. I like Gene Stealer cults as a concept, which mesh sort of, I think, so the weakness of Tyranids. So I think on a broad sense, the weakness of the alien races in 40k is the degree to which they superficially overlap with other things, all of them. So, obviously, like, because obviously everyone's seen touchstones and Space Marines and sort of space troopers from Earth in things. But the Imperium of man as it exists in 40k is quite a specific thing. Like the notion of the kind of like Byzantine Empire / Catholic Church in space as a kind of fascist, like, authoritarian, paranoid war machine is very specific to Warhammer 40,000.
Yeah.
Whereas Gundam robots in space is not as specific to them. I think they've made the Tau their own, but they feel like it's Gundam robots in space. Like if you had to describe them quickly.
Yeah.
Tyranids are the xenomorph from Aliens in a billion different forms.
Yeah.
Orcs are orcs. Necrons are undead. What other Xenos we have?
Well, the Eldar
are elves. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's where the fantasy feel is felt, I think, most keenly in the other ones. Like, I really like loads of things about all of them.
Yeah.
And it's just that I think it's also where I think the fiction has to work hardest to feel different. Because if Eldar get too sort of spiritually, or if you don't dig enough into the details, you would be forgiven for going space elves. Right? With that said, I think my choice for this is probably Eldar, and specifically either Dark Eldar or Drukhari or Harlequins.
Right.
Or even Inari. Like, Harlequins are great.
Yeah.
I really love Harlequins as a concept.
That whole idea of a battle just being like a performance that plays out a part of
a way of them reenacting their own history.
Yeah,
like,
that's very, very
and telling
awesome.
a lesson to their own people.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I love that about them. Like,
the Solitaire is just
possibly the coolest character
the coolest.
in 40k.
Yeah.
So the Solitaire, if you're not aware, is an Eldar Harlequin that ends up as a pariah to their own person, or their own people on purpose, because their job is to play the role of Slaanesh in the drama of the Eldar. And in order to do that, they have to be the ultimate outsider. But because for 40k reasons, this also makes them the kind of the world, like the galaxy's greatest assassin. Like, they have some amazing rules in the game which allow them to just basically move the entire battlefield if they want to, and they can completely ignore enemy units when zooming into a character. And one of my favorite pieces of Harlequin art that I looked at a lot when I was doing my Harlequins for Shadow War is of, like, it's supposed to be like a first person view of like an Imperial commissar or something looking over and seeing that the solitaire coming for them. And it's just this sort of incredibly ornate but calm figure, just sort of walking through bullets, like walking through tracer fire, like not even thinking about it, not dodging or weaving, just striding through it with a single-minded purpose, just to end them and move on. Yeah. Which is, it's just like, there's so much stuff about them that's absolutely rad. Really, really like that. And I like given how initially obvious the sort of high elf, dark elf touchstones are with Eldar and Dark Eldar, I really like the inversion that Dark Eldar are the true Eldar, and Eldar are something like, or a kind of weird perversion of what the Eldar were when they fell. If you know what I mean? Like, it's the other way around to the way people expect it. Like, Dark Eldar are a lot closer to what the Eldar were like when they were the species.
Because at the hedonistic, just right before Slaanesh was born out of the hedonism of that society. The
like,
Dark Eldar,
the Eldar are the kind of the weird Puritans in the Mayflower that left the hedonistic culture to found a new society. And the craft worlds are those sort of like, like escape pods from a society that had doomed itself through its hedonism. Yeah. But still the majority of that society was defined by the kinds of things that are represented by the Dark Eldar, which is, the other way of seeing it. Like, it's not like, obviously they fell, but it's not like a small fallen sect and the kind of glittering, haughty, noble whole. It's more like the kind of puritanical dropout and the survivors of
flagellant survivors of the, collapse. Yeah, the Drukhari are awesome, actually. They, their deal is they need to stave off Slaanesh by generating pain a lot of the time. And they are the more kind of central, more like bodily connected of the two forces. But they've become a kind of gangster, nightmare of a society so Kamara was just, made of various different kind of Drukhari sects who would easily assassinate, eat, kill, torture each other. And you belong to one of those, and that's your kind of house, and that's your entire identity. And they, rather than just kind of storing spirits and spirit stones in the very kind of, almost the Eldar put their people into a kind of stillborn situation where they're in these stones and they just act as kind of batteries a lot of the time for other people, or they're plugged into war machines to kind of come back. But do they really come back? Like that's their kind of deal. Whereas the Drukhari, like if, a Dark Eldar is killed on the field of battle, they can take his finger, take it back to the homeworld, give it to a homunculus, and they can regrow that person from just a strip of flesh, basically. So they're much more about the body. They're much more about which is much more interesting take, I think, than the Eldar, perhaps, who are about the spirit, aren't they? They're the two.
But the sort of that relationship is super interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah.
Like the sort of, and the fact that their, philosophy and sort of spirituality operates on the same basic principles as the Imperium. But is a completely different set. Like, the Eldar are as in, their society is as much a response to the Chaos Gods as the Imperium is.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But it's a completely different society. And that's a, really interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting what they've done with the Inari, who are the kind of death cult Eldar, the new sort of form of Eldar that exists for 8th edition. Because they've kind of gone all in on, like, the Wraith aspect of Old Eldar, so the Wraith Guard and the Wraith Lords and the Wraith Knights, like, apparently that was hugely divisive for Eldar societies, the idea of bringing back the dead in that way. Their reaction to the Dreadnought thing that the Imperium does is that a lot of them despise it, and they think it's not heresy, but they think it's disrespectful to the souls to make them fighting machines. And others obviously say, well, the alternative is Slanesh and ultimate damnation. And this is actually, you know, a way of keeping us alive. We're a dying race. And then they've taken the Wraith concept and made it into a fully forged kind of, they're giving them an avatar of death now that actually, death fuels their units. It gives them extra attacks. It gives them extra rounds of combat and stuff in the middle of a game. And they've fleshed that out into its own, new philosophy for the Eldar and what a new way to escape Slanesh, which is incredibly self-destructive, considering they're such a small race as well. It's a really interesting thing to do with them. They've really just magnified one aspect of.
Yeah, I feel like when I say that I think the Xenos races have to do more to escape their fantasy associations, I think they do a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I think actually the Eldar have gotten the furthest. Particularly I think the Eldar are the most effectively tied into the sort of cosmology of the Warhammer 40k universe.
They're an interesting reflection to the Imperium, actually, because
Yeah.
they do deal with the same shit in their own ways. It's interesting.
One thing that's very inconsistently applied in Warhammer generally is how the Chaos Gods relate to races that aren't human. Like, you don't really see, like, chaos-aligned elves or like elves with an A in Age of Sigmar or Warhammer Fantasy Battle.
No, not yet.
Like, Marathi is an exception on the Dark Elf side. And it obviously seems weird that the Dark Elves have a blood god called Cain, as opposed to the blood god called Khorne. And they're definitely not the same. Shut up. But nonetheless, right, like, there's that sort of, it almost sometimes feels like an oversight that, like, obviously Chaos Dwarves exist, but they're going to get pushed to the edges of the fiction. You don't see them very often.
No, they're pretty much erased at this stage.
Yeah, pretty much gone. Like, it's like, sometimes it feels like the fiction can feel like chaos is a human phenomena, and every other faction or race has its own deal.
Yeah.
And it feels like the setting becomes more interesting when everyone is just reacting to the same set of fundamental universal principles differently.
But in their own cultural ways,
it will be interesting if they ever... So actually, apparently, according to the new issue of White Dwarf, I think the new Tau novel, the Commander Farsight novel, actually deals with the Tau's reaction to chaos a little bit, given that the Rift has split the galaxy, which is something they need to build into that fiction,
the
right?
Rift has swallowed up an entire, like, division of Tau. They've just
Yeah.
vanished into it. So that's an interesting, like, what happens now.
Not that they should do Chaos Tau necessarily,
No.
but like they need to figure out where do they fit. Like what characteristics of the Tau people, given that Chaos Gods feed off mortal emotion, what do the specifics? What did the Tau add to that? The Eldar gave Slanesh life, and humans have been driving Tzeentch and Khorne and Nurgle and Slanesh forever, basically. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everyone sort of needs to be part of it. Like, there's a bit in the new book where apparently Khorne has just stolen a hive fleet.
Yes.
Like, one of Khorne's bloodthirsters, the one that doesn't like the Blood Angels, has just nicked a hive fleet, or killed an entire hive fleet, or stolen it. Like, it's unclear. But I find that really interesting, as I want those angles to be pulled at more. Like, I want to know, what does Nurgle make of the Tyranids? Right?
Yeah.
Like, the consuming force that is also a form of corruption, but in different way. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and why is Khorne not interested in orcs as a kind of rampaging army? You know, what is it about them that doesn't fit that? Like, they've got their own gods. Are they Gorgamork Chaos Gods, actually, really? You know, that the passions of their race have created these forces. That seems to be how Chaos Gods come to be, right?
yeah.
Is that the...
Is Gorkamorka an expression of Khorne? That'd be a really interesting twist. Like,
yeah. That actually he's running that show.
Yeah.
Khorne's running that show, you just don't know.
It's their understanding of Khorne.
Yeah.
But that would be one way of, like,
But they see different face, whatever face they need to see to believe and engage with it, right?
These are all interesting questions, but like they seem like they lurk at the fringes of it a little bit without really getting...
Yeah. I think the move in 8th edition is going to be like Chaos Space Marines versus Space Marines for a while, but I can't wait to see them move to go back over those races, go back over the Trikari and the Eldar and the Orcs especially, because they are desperately in need of model update. And I'd love to see what they do with their...
I'd love to see,
deal,
like, given how beautiful the Iron Jaws models are for AOS, whatever they do with 40k Orcs is going to be amazing.
Do those with guns. Job done.
Actually, yeah, you're completely right.
They're fantastic. Fantastic models.
Just pretend the Maw Crusher is a tank, or you're done. So actually, we didn't actually answer the question, which is, if you were to collect a Xenos race, which would you actually collect?
Ooh. It would be Eldar for me. I love those models, I think. I think even the really old models are still quite beautiful. And I love that organic armor design. It'd be a really nice break from the Imperial lines and Everything else I paint, really.
Yeah, Harlequins for me. Whenever I'd feel like never just
That's a hard project, man.
deeper into painting Prit Jail. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to do my Space Marines yellow and my Zinch gribbly. Okay, Stephen writes, Dear Crate and Crowbar Miniatures Monthly, a recent discussion on the Crate and Crowbar Miniatures Monthly spin-off podcast, The Crate and Crowbar, prompted me to start watching Columbo again. My internet-saturated brain normally wouldn't be able to concentrate on a full 90 minutes of slow-moving television, but I found it to be the perfect accompaniment to go with painting my production line of Dark Eldar Cavalite warriors, speaking of which. What media or other activities do you like to enjoy while painting your minis? Love, Steve. Oh, and one more thing, Chris. What list did you fly at the European Championships? Presumably for X-Wing, because I didn't do a European Championship or anything else. So to answer the second bit first, I flew a list I've been running for a very, very long time, which is it's a Decimator Ace variant, which is a big Imperial ship, plus Ace, but with Marek Steele and a TIE Defender who you very, very rarely see.
Oh, nice.
But Marek Steele was the protagonist of the TIE Fighter games, and he's specifically useful for his pilot skill value, when getting to 9 is an important threshold. I'm just talking now, but also very good in a meta that makes ion control, where you can shut ships down, very useful. So a TIE D ion cannon, Marek Steele with Rear Admiral Chirano, Palpatine, and Rebel Captive, and that's my list.
You got Palp on the Decimator?
Yeah.
Oh.
Palp on Decimator is nice.
Palpatine
got nerfed quite substantially, but on a Decimator he still makes sense. It was nice. That obviously won't mean anything to anyone who's an X-Wing player. It's not, it's a known archetype, but I've never seen anyone else running the variant of that archetype who didn't borrow it from me at a Bristol tournament.
Right.
As far as I can tell. I've won a lot with it. Like, it's been my store champ winning thing for a while. I'm probably still going to run it for ages, but it was nice because, one, it gets comments that it's something slightly different. And just once, this is a tiny, tiny thing, but so the start of my tournament went pretty well. It was a 9-round thing, and I was 5-2 at a certain point, which is obviously doing pretty well at 5 wins, 2 losses. And at that point, I then didn't bomb out a bit, but I had a bit of a rough run after that and went to 6-3 in the end, or 5-4? 6-3, I think. But when I was 5-2, one guy posted in the official stream Twitch chat, I just heard a guy has gone 5-2 with Marek Steele. No one ever see that. So that was a neat.
No, that's awesome.
That was nice to see in the chat. Someone sent me a screen grab of that, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, just noticed the quirky.
Random internet man noticed me.
I love that Decimator model, and I love the way it plays the game, actually.
It's lovely. People think it's either a bad ship or a easy ship, and it is neither of those things. I've never been. Yeah, it's the only ship I feel like I know inside out in that game is the Decimator.
Played a really fun game against Tom Hatfield, earlier question asker, where his flaming Decimator just hunted down. It wasn't like a competitive game at all, but it created a very cool image of how the Empire hunt down and
funnily enough, that model got me into X-Wing, and is therefore the reason I'm into Warhammer now.
Well,
and the reason for that is the Decimator, and we mentioned this earlier, was a ship from Star Wars Galaxies. Because, a fun thing about Star Wars is the Empire doesn't really have any ships or didn't really have any ships of like a Millennium Falcon size. Every Imperial ship is either a Star Destroyer or a TIE Fighter. It's either massive or tiny. Yeah. And from a video game designer's perspective, that creates a problem because you have 3 different types of pilot in that game. You have the Rebels and the Scum or the Villain, the Rebels, Independent, Spacers, and Empire. And Empire don't really make sense as independent operators. You're talking about swarms of TIE pilots or Star Destroyer commanders, not people with independent things. So they had to kind of create a new set of TIE vessels to kind of make sense at that level. Things like the Aggressor. But also the Decimator, which was invented as a kind of mid-level gunboat. Like kind of what is the Imperial thing at that size?
It's a shotgun, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a kind of brawler gunship, with basically no defenses and huge firepower. And yeah, I love it to pieces. But like, I hadn't seen that ship, or even like I had one in Star Wars Galaxies, and it was a top level Imperial pilot tier reward. You could decorate the inside of it how you wanted, like a Falcon.
Oh, cool.
Basically lived in that thing like a flying house, loved it to pieces. And when that game died, I never saw it again. And then I was in a game shop at Orc's Nest in London, which is a sort of tabletop game supplement. We're there to buy a Numenera supplement, actually. And I saw that there was this X-Wing miniatures game thing, which is interesting, but also, like, holy shit, is that a Decimator? Like, like how the fuck does that exist? Like, it's like the last thing in the world. Like, I would have bought a model of that thing regardless of there being a game attached to it. Like, it was such a kind of point of my teenager role-playing game life that, yeah, and so I bought that. Like, so I went and then investigated the game, then got into the game, and then so on. So that's one of the reasons I keep running the Decimator, actually, is because it's of sentimental value.
Yes.
That's why I will keep trying to get it to top tables. And actually, a couple of Decimators did make it to top tables at Euros. But yeah, talk more about the specifics of why they are and aren't suited to the top meta in a different podcast where I ramble about the X-Wing meta game. But the other half of the question was things to watch while you paint or do your hobby bits.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, always pick up the Warhammer Live Twitch channel.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Which is perfect kind of background painting fodder. I think you learn a lot about playing the game from just having it on in the background and hearing what units can do.
Yeah.
And just learning what can happen in the game, like what sort of things to expect, like what a deep strike looks like in AOS, what Overwatch looks like in new edition 40k. Just, it gives you a lot of context, and it's almost, you're getting a lot of game knowledge just by absorbing it in the background. And I think the personalities they've got on are good, and they have fun with the game and aren't afraid to kind of be silly with it, while still obviously respecting the lore and everything that company has to do to preserve the weight of its IP.
So yeah, I watch some gaming streams and Warhammer when it's on. And then for the most part, it's mostly music for me because I find I struggle to watch TV while doing something else. Like, I can't really do it. I can watch a stream is slightly different, but like esports broadcaster goes well, but that's a different side of my interest. Yeah. It's something you can kind of listen to, like you're listening to the football or something like that. I find I need to be able to listen to it, and I can't just listen to TV. I have to watch it.
Right.
So yeah, it's either music or a stream of some kind for me.
I chew through loads of podcasts. I'm like a podcast fiend and I inhale them. So I've just got a huge playlist of podcasts that I just put on. Stuff you should know. That's a good background thing. Where you just sort of learn random things. I love like just absorbing general knowledge.
Yeah, same. So like Pip and I, like sometimes we'll just listen to pods in the conservatory and I'll paint and she'll be working on one of her projects. Yeah, and that's awesome. A nice way to do it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Into the telly, yeah, it is tricky. I think there's a whole kind of, there's lots of television that you don't have to watch. So yeah, watch lots of political TV that way. You just don't have
probably something like that would work for me. I struggle with anything like a drama where I feel like I have to be looking.
Yeah, and also I think when you're watching a drama or you're watching a television series that's trying to establish a world, so much effort goes into cinematography and actually presenting scenes and getting clothes together that it seems wrong not to watch it. But politically, like started this week, like your question times, any questions, all that kind of stuff. Even the moral maze, which, you know, is designed to make you angry. It's still fun to have on in the background.
The next question comes from Matt, who writes, Dear Primaris Space Marine and Space Primaris Space Marine, I would like to start by sending you a walloping thank you for the wonderful pod, which has become something of an oral highlight for me every month. Wow, how nice people are.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, so nice.
I'm always particularly excited when it drops in time to accompany me on a chilly and damp midwinter early morning run here in Melbourne. This past week has involved the enjoyable dissonance of running at 6 a.m. in the pitch dark and 3 degrees in the rain while you both complain about it being too hot. Well, have we got a treat for you,
yeah,
Matt?
Welcome back.
Because it's too fucking hot. Anyway, as well as wishing to sing your praises, I did have a couple of questions. I've been away from the 40k hobby since 5th edition. This corresponded with my moving away from the UK and away from my gaming group to the other side of the world. However, the new release of 40k has piqued mine and many others' interest. I'm still flitting around the edge of the hobby, slightly holding back on diving into the massive resource and time sink it can be. But on the other hand, shiny new models. So in relation to my absorption in the hobby increasing, I was wondering if either of you listen to any other hobby pods you would recommend. Don't worry, I pinky promise you will remain my first love. You've both mentioned Warhammer TV on the pod as a resource. In fact, we just did. I was expecting it to be cringeworthy and janky with awkward, drank far too much of the Kool-Aid presentation and was very impressed by its content and presentation. Is there anything you listen to, official or fan-based, that you would recommend? Secondly, as I begin to consider my return to the hobby, how do you both set up your painting/hobby areas? In Australia, tenants have even fewer protections than in the UK and absolutely do not want to risk paint or adhesive spillages or hobby knife scratches. I also do not have a lot of space to play with. Do either of you use the paint stations made by Citadel or other companies? If so, are they any good? Finally, last month we had a lovely story about Stuart, the best space wolf, in one of your Burning Prospero scenarios.
Yeah. He was
Have any of you got certain models who have ended up with nicknames or reputation of running jokes about them? The first Forge World model I ever bought was a Black Templar's Venerable Dreadnought, which was also the first model I really painted to a standard I was happy with. For reasons I cannot even remotely begin to remember, in my gaming group, this veteran of countless crusades, this hero of the Imperium, who continued to serve the Emperor even in death, became known as Jerry. Keep up with the wonderful pod. Thanks for painting little plastic men's, everybody. Matt.
Yeah, that last point I think is the beating heart of the hobby for me in a gaming sense. It is the heroes that emerge along the way.
Yeah.
It is the relictors, it is the Minotaur that hulks out and just obliterates some, Dracoth.
Yeah, I have a really specific sense of your relictor, weirdly. I think it helps from that he's your Silver Tower character, where your best trick is to stand in a doorway and just incinerate everything in the room. And I've done it, I've solved it.
Yeah, that relic is awesome. The model's so characterful, but he's got his own personality now. He's his own.
It feels like he's this like a wandering priest. Like he just walks quite slowly. His low movement value and the fact that whenever you roll a run roll for him, you get like a 1.
Yeah, he never goes anywhere fast. But he zaps things to ash.
Like in today's game when, the Iron Storm cleared and the charging Thaumaturge and sort of surging chariot were revealed and the Relictor just wandered back through the shield line, turned around and incinerated the Thaumaturge with lightning.
He is a badass. And I think part of it is that I went for black armor for him, completely different to everyone else in the army. I think this is actually quite a cool way of creating these characters where you can change the color scheme a lot, and as long as you keep a kind of like the blue and gold motif somewhere on the model, it will kind of fit in a battle scenario. But his whole thing, he's called the Ash Bearer, and he's like the way that relictors are formed is that they go into this strange temple in Sigmar that no one else is allowed into, and no one knows what happens to them, but they go through these strenuous trials of death and they come out with this special armor, which is why they have a 3+ save and they move slower than everyone else. It's because they have this elite armor on, but his is just has baked in ash of dead folk, which is why he's black and grey and why he's just kind of this strange wreathing, death node in the middle of an otherwise celestial army. And I love that contrast. I think that creates so much character for him.
I think I've started to find that emerging. I think the Thaumaturge is sort of defined almost the way his fact that he will chase the Relictor wherever he goes. And just kill whatever's in the way and then die to the Relictor almost every time. That's
a pretty cool story.
Everything that got in the way of him today died until he hit the Relictor. Then, you know what I mean? Which is kind of the way it goes. But I'm starting to sort of build up the character of the Sorcerer Lord, who I still think is the guy who doomed that civilization that we're fighting over. Whose job is, I like the idea of the Sorcerer Lord who's been denied the full gift of Tzeentch and is still being denied it.
Yeah.
And that's why he sort of stands at the back and he sort of channels this demonic energy into other people. But I basically with him, I always like the idea of the deaf composer. He can write this stuff, but he can't hear it. It's kind of flowing out of him, but no one is ever giving him the power. He's not getting his.
He's just a medium, right?
Yeah, he's just a medium, and I really like that because that fit perfectly today with when he randomly ended up just on his own in the corner of the board, unable to see anything 3 inches away, just casting his own buffs on himself. Well, I'm ready, guys.
He's just trying to he's trying to open himself up to his god and trying to get that final blessing, but he's only like a fuse in the circuit.
Which is why the moment months ago when he killed your Celestant on Dracoth, just with a flood of with 7 destiny dice from me and a bit of luck and a huge Hail Mary that didn't do anything to the state of the game, but just was a cool moment. Kind of meant something because it's
that was his. I mean, that could.
Well, he thinks Tzeentch spoke through him, but a very specific Lord of Change spoke through him.
Yes, and that could be the best ever gets for that guy. He could be doomed to this mediocrity. Depending on what you want to do with him, whether he wants to
he's doomed. There's another character who will come along when I do the Magister, who is going to be worse than him, but better at the same time. Someone who just sort of finds it easier. I kind of like the idea of the rubbish Chaos Sorcerer Lord who'll be chasing that forever. Yeah. And that kind of fits the game.
The guy comes in and is actually blessed by Tzeentch and no one knows why, but that guy
There's going to be a Demon Prince eventually who's going to be awesome. The actual scion of that.
And that case, that Sorcerer Lord has to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
So good.
You have all these aspirations. They don't fucking
matter. Not favoured by your Chaos Guard.
Yeah.
You're doomed.
So other parts of this question. So other hobby pods we'd recommend.
Yeah, one of the better ones just shut recently. Heelanham was good. That's like a couple of guys who've been part of the scene for like decades and decades. They've done it all. They've played competitively at the highest level. Dan Heelan has, and Wayne Kemp is like a really great hobbyist and paints amazing Skaven armies and stuff. And until like as of like last month, I think they stopped the pod because of like life commitments and stuff. But I still think it's worth going through their backlog and hearing their chats about gaming and hobby. And that was the one I listened to the most.
Yeah.
It was also the one with like a really good mic setup. Like it sounded professional. Whereas a lot of them are done over Skype and stuff, which I think like is a big problem for podcasts.
Yeah, that's why we don't do it.
Yeah.
I did so I sort of dropped off the wagon, but only because they got to things that I didn't want spoiled for me. But listen to a lot of Mortal Realms on your recommendation, particularly the early parts of that podcast when they're kind of getting into Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
Because they do like, not read throughs quite, but like sort of lengthy, quite deep discussions of basically the first year of Age of Sigmar's fiction.
Yep.
Which I found was helpful for getting me up to speed with it without me kind of having to read through the backlog of the Realmgate novels, which I've read a bunch of now. I think there's some good fiction mixed in there, but like a lot of my favorite Age of Sigmar fiction isn't on that critical path of like what literally happened.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have an easy way of catching up with that.
Yeah.
And the surrounding discussion about the hobby is generally pretty good.
Yeah.
So.
They go blow by blow in the book, so you get a lot of plot points and some interesting discussion about what it means for the wider kind of state of, metaphysical state of the universe.
So yeah, that's the Mortal Realms podcast. I didn't listen to them past like, it was irregularly released anyway, but I didn't listen to past a certain point only because they'd gotten to books I was actually reading and I didn't want them to, didn't want to read obviously hear their stuff about it before I'd read it. So
it's a good way to catch
off
up.
the wagon, but
good way to catch up without having to read a lot of books.
Yeah. And the other part of this question was, about setting up a kind of responsible hobby space and whether or not we use sort of the Citadel trays. 'Cause I think you do, don't you? Or
what's that? Yes, I've
hobby
got
box sort of thing.
I've got the hobby box thing, which is a kind of all-in-one storage device, and then the lid turns into a kind of painting space, which has worked brilliantly actually. Really pleased with it. I did get some paint on a table recently somehow, and that's on the table forever. So a cheap cover for any table you're working on can cost like, I don't know, £5 in our country, but I'm sure that very cheap alternatives are available.
So what I've done is I've got quite a big sort of hobby craft board, like knife cutting board thing, like the green board with the lines on it that you see everywhere.
That one, yeah,
that one in like A3 size, like quite big, and then have that as a base, but use it to pin down like a little, basically like blanket of kitchen towel, which I replace every now and then. And that's useful for two reasons. One, it means that if I spill something, it has to obviously get off the waterproof chopping board, which is pretty big, and then through the kitchen towel, which often gives you time to kind of rescue whatever it is you've spilled. Yeah. It helps that I don't have to move my setup. Obviously that's a huge deal. Cause it's sort of in situ in the conservatory. The other thing is that I can sort of pin kitchen towel underneath the board so that it hangs off the edge of the table sort of towards my lap as I'm painting, which means I almost have like a tear off supply of kitchen towel available at any given time for like wiping off brushes in a kind of clean and not going to bump into anything other than me kind of way. Yeah. Which is helpful for just cleaning brushes quickly and that kind of thing. So nice. Yeah, that's dead easy as well. Just a chopping board or a knife cutting board and a roll of kitchen towel will protect it pretty well. Right. And just generally not doing what I do and occasionally just like batting over a load of Drakenhof Nightshade and having to gather it all up. Yeah. Get a really big cutting board if you're clumsy. That's my tip.
Knocking
keep
over
everything
wash
in the middle of it. Yeah.
You can knock over paint and it's only going so far, but wash is going everywhere.
Yeah. You knock over a wash, that's going fucking everywhere. Yeah. Our next question comes from Ryland, who writes, "Dear Mini-Men Monthly, just wanted to let you know how much I'm enjoying the new show." Jesus. Everyone's so nice. I mean, nice. Jesus in a thank you way. Like, unlike most of the readers who write in, I'm not currently involved in tabletop games, nor do I plan to get back in. I played 40k for a bit back in high school, mostly preferred the act of assembling, painting, and diorama creation. I fielded a Tyranids army while my best friend who got me into the hobby did Blood Angels. While I enjoy hearing you talk about and can relate to the specific joys of paintings, I really love your discussions of lore. You've convinced me to start looking for a good 40k book to read. But beyond that, I was wondering if you could recommend some kind of codex or encyclopedia. My initial introduction to Games Workshop was through the World of Warhammer book, an incredibly colourful tome that I found sandwiched in the hobby section of a bookstore one day when I was young. I obsessed over the book for years, reading and rereading its descriptions of strange lands, dark factions, how they lived, and how they fought. Who would write a book like this, I wondered? A fiction almanac to a world without game or movie tie-ins. At no point did the book make mention of the miniatures. It was only years later that I made the connection and realised I had been reading a source book for a tabletop game. I wish there was something like that available now, but I can't imagine it making any financial sense. What would you say would be the best book for catching up on the new world building for Age of Sigmar 40k and 30k? I love the pod. Keep on painting, Ryland. It feels like in some ways wikis have stepped in for this role, like Lexicanum, which is the 40k wiki, and there's not really an AOS one.
No, there obviously like not quite enough AOS stuff to really form a wiki at this stage. There are some like key characters and stuff, but there is an AOS wiki, but it's narrow. Yeah. It's a really good question. It's hard, especially for AOS. I think that might be a bit of a problem for it because cool pictures, cool key art only goes so far. When you want people to be becoming absorbed in the entire universe and to the extent that we are with, but it took us a lot of work, I think, to get into AOS, to understand AOS.
And we had to kind of make it our own a little bit as well.
Yeah, we had to which is, a lot of the AOS setting is actually about creating more space for people playing to create their own stories. But,
it's an interesting trade-off because, like, one of the ways you could see this is, for as long as if you are able to write a interesting, consistently engaging source book for your tabletop game that defines every aspect for a world, and can do so in a way without ever mentioning that it's for a miniatures or a tabletop game, then your fiction is probably strangling that tabletop game. Because to the extent that these things are about player creativity and kind of expressing yourself through your models and your painting, that's incompatible with having a fully fleshed out world whose boundaries are 100% defined. Yeah. That was the flaw of the old world in Warhammer.
There's definitely a conflict there. I think that AOS is on slightly the too open side of it.
Yeah.
I think they've introduced the Kharadron Overlords have really cool internal lore. Basically, the way that their mercantile culture works is really interesting, but has no wider kind of impact to the game. They have no wider connections to other factions yet. It feels like all the factions are very, very separate, apart from the ones that have appeared in the core books, which are Sylvaneth, Stormcast, Khorne, and Nurgle. Like that, those are the kind of interconnected factions, it feels like, based on the books that have been released so far. Whereas 40k, it has the benefit of having 20, 30 years of ongoing, consistent lore behind it. But like we had just a few minutes ago, we had a massive discussion about the Xenos and their various kind of philosophical takes on a world, and that's the brain food that AOS lacks. It doesn't have those kind of same
it's
hooks.
Getting it slowly.
Yeah, I mean it's a brand new game, so
I like
you don't expect it to come
the logic of that game and things like the transference of souls between realms and things like
that
is becoming part of its mythology. Yeah. And I can imagine, if we are in the beginning years of what was once Rogue Trader and had lore that made no sense, like early 40k, it had half Eldar Space Marines, and it was all just the soup of ideas that hadn't quite found its lines and boundaries and rules and logic yet. I think AOS will probably get there. It's just years from it, and that's a different thing. And it's nice because it's nice to the extent that we can tell our own stories in that fiction and not worry that we're stepping on toes. To do that with 40k, you have to kind of hand wave a bunch of I find that AOS's scope it fits more kind of gratifyingly in my brain than 40k's does. Yeah. Because 40k's is almost it's almost a bit dismissive. The universe is so vast and so pointless that of course you can create your own Forge world if you like.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't fucking matter.
Nothing matters.
Whereas it feels not that it quote unquote matters, but it feels like if you carve out your own little chunk of one of the realms and decide you're going to define it, or carve out your own section of a particular storm host, even if it's one of the official storm hosts, you can kind of make that yours, like you have done with the Hammers of Sigmar. Like you have a Hammers of Sigmar force, but it's obviously your own host.
Yeah.
There hasn't been any of the books, but it feels like a valid part of that universe.
Yeah,
because there's nothing there to contradict it. But equally, there's everything there to support it. And it doesn't feel insignificant either, if you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Though I've become quite invested in my idea for a 40k force.
Absolutely.
And I think like I could fit battles into that context that feel like their own novel series and their own kind of movie series almost.
Yeah, and if, I have do that Thousand Suns force I'm thinking about doing, and, Ahriman shows up one day with a cult uprising on your Forge World, that's a cool drama. Like, yeah.
And also, if you come up with Primaris, again, I've created a scenario where the Imperium might try and kill.
It might be a case for Exterminatus.
Yeah, it might be a clear case for Exterminatus, so sending the Primaris in to take me on makes sense. In terms of actually getting into the lore, it feels like 40k is much easier. They've got dedicated wikis. The Horrors Heresy book series is excellent, as we've mentioned before.
Yeah.
In AOS, probably the Mortal Realms podcast is probably the way to do it.
Yeah, the closest AOS gets to some like the Realmgate Wars books, but they're expensive and designed for a completely different purpose.
Yeah.
It's tricky. Like AOS doesn't have that yet. No. 40k doesn't have a single Bible for the setting either, though I think the Heresy novels are the best way in to kind of what it's about.
I think, the foundation.
Actually, to be honest, before we go on actually on that point, that actually kind of answers our next question, which is from Andrew, who writes, "Dear Minotaurs mostly," which is very appropriate.
Nice.
I have no intention of building, painting, or playing with little men, but enjoy your new pod for the lore and the match reports. I'm partial to depth of detail and invention in my fiction, i.e., e.g., China Mireille's Kraken or John Meaney's Bone Song. Can you recommend any of the tie-in novels with this in mind? Or anything else, really? Great writing, not a necessity. My background with GW today is you guys and walking past the shops and looking in the windows. So in terms of like novels you recommend, I think for me it's definitely the horror.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend the Horrors Heresy novels if you are interested in Age of Sigmar specifically. My favorite Age of Sigmar book that I've read so far is Call of Archaon. Like that's the thing that made me go like, yeah, I'm a Chaos player in this setting. Like, that's the story of, it's a novel, but it's basically 3 novellas bolted together, each following a different champion of a different Chaos God as they attempt to earn the favor of Archaon, who is the kind of chosen champion of all of the Chaos Gods, and find a place in his Varangard, which is, it's very evocative of each of the Chaos Gods. It's got good twists in it. It's sort of pretty grim in its focus on what it means to be a Chaos champion and the kinds of things you got to do to stay a Chaos champion.
Yeah.
But, I found it, I came away with it with lots of sense of setting, whereas most of the other novels that I've read have been very Stormcast centric, and I haven't really, I haven't felt like a character I've rooted for in them yet necessarily. Like, they are very, it feels like Stormcast is still waiting for their like fun Space Marines to show up to some extent, if you know what I mean. Like, actually there are a few exceptions. The Celestial Vindicators are quite good fun because they are super angry all of the time. So maybe the, is it Warbeast? I think Warbeast is the book that is just Celestial Vindicators fighting a lot of Khorne and a lot of orcs, then a lot of Khorne with a lot of orcs.
That's supposed to be a good one. I've not read it. There's a really good one. It was, I think it started as an audio series, and then was actually also written up as a novel, involving Manfred von Carstein and, the Stormcast.
Oh, that's with the Hallowed Knights, right? Like,
Hallowed Knights.
That's
really
good
cool.
And
that's a good one.
I think that's good. So the Hallowed Knights first appear in the 3rd Realmgate Wars novel where they're fighting Nurgle.
Yeah.
And they're a bit boring because they're super faithful and duty bound.
Yes.
They are basically the Imperial Fists of Age of Sigmar.
Yeah. Very pious.
But like, yeah, the one where they go to the Realm of Death is the one where they gain a bit of, they get some interesting foils, which is the main thing. It's not just we are pious and you are Nurgle. Fight. It's, there's a bit more going on.
They've got some of the best, they've got the best catchphrase as well, which is like, who will be victorious?
Only the faithful.
Yeah. Which is their big battle chant. But also, like, they're on a quest to find Nagash. And that's a really interesting thing for the Stormcast to be doing, given what we've discussed previously on the pod about the War for Souls that actually underpins Age of Sigmar as a concept.
Yeah.
Nagash is the wronged party, but also, the most treacherous. Like, Sigmar was paired with...
Nagash is the god of the dead, so yeah.
the god of the dead. But Sigmar was paired, joined up with him several times and been betrayed by him over and over again. And Nagash is now, like, feels incredibly hard done by because he was defeated so solidly by Archaon, and Archaon has repeatedly kept him down. But he still blames Sigmar in some way for this because he's been denied the power that gets him.
I definitely think that's one thing that
really cool angle.
One thing that AOS has over 40k, I think, is a really good Chaos villain. Actually,
Archaon's fantastic.
Archaon is fucking great.
Yeah. Much
So 40k, I think 40k Chaos is better developed in terms of like how it fits into the universe generally, sort of. But actually, like, the best way to understand Archaon is he's like, what if Horus had survived for 10,000 years, not Abaddon? Because Abaddon is a fucking chump.
Yeah.
Like, he's your least favorite member of the Mournival.
Right.
At the start of the Horus Heresy.
Guy gets the most famous though.
He gets the most famous, but he's like the shit member of the boy band that has the inexplicable successful solo career that you don't necessarily root for. You know what I mean? Like, I suppose that would make him the Robbie Williams of Chaos, but I like Robbie Williams, so that's not necessarily a fair comparison.
I know what you mean though.
Like, yeah, you know, he's sort of angry and petulant and wants what's his and doesn't have any kind of like integral cool. Like, Abaddon doesn't have any chill. That's my predominant issue with Abaddon.
Gotta have chill.
Horus does, like, until he doesn't. Archaon is like kind of the epitome of, well, he's as chill as you can be while riding a dragon with 3 heads, each head being a different greater demon from a different chaos god that your horse ate.
Yes. They sent their greatest champions.
His horse ate them.
His horse, not even him, he just stood back and let the horse do the thing. The horse ate them and now he has 3 heads and is a dragon.
Yeah.
Amazing. And Archaon is like a chaos god in waiting, basically, or possibly the end of chaos. Like, he's such a threat that he could end the chaos.
Well, his mission is to kill chaos.
Yeah.
And possibly Sigmar as well.
Yeah.
Because he's a fallen priest of Sigmar.
Yeah.
Who, like...
He's a fantastic threat. He's a really good villain.
There's a great, there's a couple of great moments in the Realm Gate Wars series with Archaon where his sort of presence is so kind of, because whenever he shows up, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like another Chaos.
They build that up really well in the AOS books, actually.
Yeah. Like, his appearance on the battlefield is just like devastating, and it matches his presence in the game to an extent as well. But like, so, you know, Stormcast come back to life, so minor spoilers. Vanda's Hammerhand is the sort of unconquered champion of Sigmar for the vast majority of those books. He does make sacrifices, but he basically can't lose until he hits Archaon. And he does his heroic charge at Archaon, and Archaon decapitates his Dracoth and then kills him.
Yeah.
Like 2 swipes, just gone. And there's a great sort of image of, as Vandas's soul returns to Sigmar and as the lightning kind of bursts out of him, Archaon just runs his fingers through it, and you see like sort of trails of like green and purple fire kind of like trace off Archaon's fingers. So what is he doing?
What he's done there.
Like, yeah, it's just, oh man, it's such a good presence in that fiction.
He
like,
is.
Given that the sort of the ground level, what it's like to live in the Age of Sigmar is so underdeveloped, its kind of big forces are really well realized, I think.
I love the idea of, Archaon sitting at the center of this spider web of, realm gates. So, there's I can't remember what it's called. This is the All Points, isn't it?
The Varan Spire is his fortress at the All Points.
Oh, he's got, I think we've talked about this before, but the throne that he never sits on because he's too busy conquering. And the Gaunt Summoners who serve him. But yeah, he's also like, he's got the chaotic, sort of almost next to the world with realm gates to every realm. And that's what kind of Sigmar's trying to desperately take eventually, which is part of what the Realm Gate Wars are all about.
Yeah. Sigmar eventually succeeds in shutting off 2 of them, but not all of them.
No.
Like, one of the best sequences in Call of Archaon, which is one of the reasons I definitely recommend it, is following the Champion of Tzeentch that gets to, who's a major character in that book, as he tries to break into the Varan. So basically the Varan Spire, is not only like Archaon Citadel against forces of order. Every champion from every realm and there are millions of them because the realms are so vast that millions of people who consider themselves champions are already making this journey at any given time. They all collide in this one place. And so it is a constant battle between everybody.
Right.
Like forces of the same Chaos God fighting each other, temporary alliances and this kind of thing, trying to get in to Archaon's fortress to ask him if they can become a Varangard. And it is surrounded by like the deadliest things imaginable. Like even the drawbridges are like every like couple of minutes they're swept by like columns of fire that just eradicate everything on them.
Yeah. And
there's a great sequence in that book which is just about like one Tzeentch sorcerer champion trying to get through those defenses, basically betraying every single person in front of him. Like, he has his own sort of retinue and he's basically sacrificing them one by one. But there's a big chunk of like, he bumps into some Khorne forces and says, well, if we work together and fight honorably, you can have those skulls and we'll all survive. And then just sort of pushes them in front of the next thing. And it's like the thread you have to throw together. Yeah, it's such a great evocative piece of like, a very different kind of fiction to 40k, but it's sort of like an infinite fantasy war taking place in one place. That isn't even relevant to the principal conflict of that fiction. Right. Because it's just people vying. It's just basically Chaos Apprentice.
Yeah.
Like.
It's a Darwinian nightmare.
Yeah. It's great.
That's fantastic. And Archaon's not even there most of the time.
No, he's not even there. He's not even there is the twist. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Our final question comes from Alex, who writes, "Hey guys, I'm absolutely loving the pod. I play other games, but having heard you guys talking about it, I found myself considering AOS. But my question, have you tried anything on a smaller scale? I love skirmish games. Small scale of the armies means I've got full armies for Infinity, Frostgrave, Guild Ball, and not far off rounding off a full Batman gang. Not only that, but the games are shorter, so I have more chances to win on game night and not go home with a dangerously high sodium level. Have you tried any smaller scale games with a handful of models? My experience with GW is mainly the Lord of the Rings game when I was a teenager, and I remember moving around fistfuls of models and then waiting forever to do the same. Smaller scale games seem better paced to me, particularly Infinity, where you can react to your opponent's activations, or Guild Ball, where you alternate activating single models instead of each moving your entire armies. Loving both CNC and MM, particularly a hobby paint chat. Keep feeding the podcasts, Alex." So, we did actually talk about AOS Skirmish on a previous episode, which is more or less exactly this.
Yeah. I'd be interested in trying out some of the systems. It's just the time commitment and of getting into multiple systems is so great with miniature stuff.
Shadow War is another alternative here. Which is basically, and actually Path to Glory, if it pans out to what it's supposed to be, where you sort of start with, it's not exactly miniature by miniature activations, but it's designed to build out your small games into something more substantial.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite tabletop gaming experience ever has come from Wartime, which is a great skirmish game. But a lot of that came from the persistence and the warband building that happens between rounds as much as the game itself.
Yeah. I'm excited to play Shadow War at last.
Yeah, I'll paint up those guitars soon.
Yeah. I think that's, so I'll maybe listen back to our discussion about Skirmish and the game we played for that, for me to see if that floats your boat.
That was last episode, wasn't it?
Was it? No, it was the episode before.
Okay.
Because last episode was Prospero, so episode 4.
Yes, correct.
Cool. Yeah, because episode 4 was the one we recorded immediately after Warhammer Fest.
Oh, yeah. Good times.
Good times. That is all of the questions we've got time for. It's been a long pod day. And now it's time for a sweaty pod exit.
Yes.
If you'd like to send us a question for a future episode of Miniatures Monthly, you can do so by emailing us at miniatures@crateandcrowbar.com. You can also follow this podcast specifically at Minis Monthly, where we post our pictures and some stuff we've been working on and that kind of thing. Or just me having an increasingly eerie experience of the phrase "thousand suns" following me around.
Yeah. It's spectacular.
If you, you can also follow the Crate and Crowbar proper on Twitter at Crate and Crowbar. And this podcast is very kindly supported by our, Patreon backers at patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar, who, by supporting the main Crate and Crowbar podcast, allow us to do these spin-offs. Our intro and outro music, I've been forgetting to mention last couple of episodes, is by Mike Debenham, who very kindly provided it to us for free, and it is spectacular. If you would like to hang out with our amazing and very active tabletop wargaming community, and indeed tabletop gaming generally community, you can do so on a Discord channel. You'll find the link on the website, crateandcrowbar.com, and on that channel you'll find a chat room called Table Talk. That's where the table talk happens.
Indeed.
if you'd like to follow us individually, Tom, where can people internet find you?
I'm on Twitter at PCGLudo, though you're better off following the Minis Monthly account for pictures of my stuff as I'm doing it.
And you can follow me on Twitter at CThurston, that's CTHURSTEN. Again, most of my miniature stuff goes on Minis Monthly now. However, I do also have a miniatures Instagram, which is Exit Warp, which is what happens to Ahriman in every game I use him in.
Holy moly.
The warp exits him, or he exits to go back to the warp.
Yep. He's never not exploding.
Never not rolling double ones. Great. Well,